Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting on this June 19th. It is 7 p.m., and I'll call the meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda, actually first two items, is our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. So tonight we have Joe Rivas, he's the Executive Director of Seeds of Hope, with us tonight. He'll lead us in our invocation, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this gathering. We know, Lord, that all authority is under you and that you have appointed these city officials to lead the city. We just pray, Lord, that your spirit would be on them, that we do all things that would benefit the people of Casa Grande and the surrounding areas. And we thank you, we praise you for this opportunity, Lord, to just gather together in our free country. We love you. We thank you. In your Son's precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Thank you, Mr. Lavender.
I stepped on the
Gloria, please let the roll call show that all the council members are present.
So noted.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the City Council regular meeting minutes of June 5th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning regular minutes of May 4th, 2023, and the Board of Adjustment regular meeting on May 9th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Claims against the city, item D1.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated May 31st through June 13th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for the claims. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain, Mayor.
All right, one abstention. Item E is our meeting agenda. I'm going to change the agenda, at least on the back end. We have an executive session, so I'm going to move the reports, item N, to come before item M1. So please make that note on your agenda. Any other changes, Larry?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would ask that that the council remove from the consent agenda item number G4, remove it from the agenda completely.
All right.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just like to take a second. I know that there was a public notice published for an annexation off of Peart Road, and I've talked to a couple of individuals that were here for that meeting tonight. That meeting that particular annexation has been postponed, and there will not be a public hearing on the annexation this evening. But just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
Is that on our agenda, or was it?
It is not on the agenda.
Previously published?
Yeah, it was published.
Okay.
In the newspaper.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda?
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the meeting agenda as amended.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the meeting agenda is approved as amended. We don't have any special presentations tonight, so we'll move to consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member or a member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Other than striking G4, are there any other changes? Anyone from the public want to pull anything off of our consent agenda? Okay, seeing no one, then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of G4.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next we have item H. This is where we allow the public to comment to the council. And I would just remind you that if you're here for a public hearing, you can save your time to speak at the public hearing. But if there's any other subjects that you would like to talk to the council about, this is your opportunity, and just reminding everyone that it is not an agendized item, so we can't respond to non-agendized items, and we'll ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone here who would like to address the council directly on any other matter, then please come forward. And remember to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Just list who you are and your address, please.
Okay. I timed this. I am Jean Henderson and have existed inside my little blue truck for more than 2 years. Number one, for your consideration, anyway, that's where I live. About a month ago, outside the main library, I saw a woman returning to the Grande Retired Care Facilities van using a walker. She reached the steps, left behind her walker, and she crawled up into the van. I don't understand why that was, and I don't think that's appropriate. I'm just asking you. 2, my terrorizers continue. I received another call from Chief McCrory this morning and was told that I'm not to call his officers, and nor am I to, he's not going to give me a tour of the police department like I'd wanted. Okay. Number 3, 2 church shelter nights have been much appreciated. The first time with 2 of us women. Last time there were 3 women and 4 men. I continue telling people of the time, 1 time a week, to try to help as many of us as I can and am able. There are non-homeless who wonder why only 1 time a week, especially when the temperatures are going to be climbing. They're racing upwards. Okay, I am wearing a pride pendant to honor Pride Month. When other cities in Arizona celebrate Pride Month, why not Casa Grande? Okay. Number 5, I am wearing my Juneteenth, it's my second one I have, t-shirt, and I'm honoring Juneteenth. Juneteenth, also known as African American Independence Day, Jubilee Day, or Freedom Day, is a celebration of the emancipation of enslaved black people in America. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after President Lincoln freed the slaves, federal troops traveled to Galveston, Texas, to pass on the message that the Civil War had ended and that all African American enslaved people should be freed. Juneteenth is annually observed on June 19th and honored across the country with events like parades, cookouts, and joyous celebrations. On Fox TV tonight, I saw the mayor and city council of Mesa celebrating Juneteenth. So why does Casa Grande not honor the federal holiday? I asked residents to recall Governor Evan Meekum's refusal to honor the new Martin Luther King federal holiday. I was down here at that time, and all that ensued, and how it made it seem that Arizonans were racist. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I have 13 seconds.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
My name is Cornell Smith. I live at 502 West McMurray Boulevard here in Casa Grande, zip code 85122. Respectfully to all the council members, I'm going to be going over 3 minutes because this is something that needs to be addressed. I'm not going to take long at all, but I am going to be longer than 3 minutes. I wrote in this personal statement as I am a business owner of my own clothing and music and everything, but I am also involved in a lot of other stuff. I have gotten involved with a lot of different PDs within the state, trying to figure out what can we do to help the traffic here in this state. Because it's not just this city that needs, excuse me, it's not just this city that needs things upgraded, but it's the entire state in general. There's no driver's education in order to teach our young people in order to drive correctly. Casa Grande is the only city that has protective lefts last instead of protective left first. You go to any other city in the state, anywhere in the metro area, I have yet to visit Tucson or Yuma or any of those, but I'm sure that a lot of these cities are still following the same protocol when it comes to the lighting and traffic and stuff. And so I written this personal statement. 3 accidents on the 15th of June, 1 fatal. Couldn't get to the south side of the I-10 for the one right outside of CG. The semi-trailer was not secure and the cargo did kill the driver. Even though the bottom tail did come loose on its left end and it could be seen that the driver was speeding, he wasn't speeding but following too close to the trailer, having instant impact with this releasing cargo. May he be covered in his journey. Another cargo-related accident on the I-10, 2 miles outside of the Chandler exit, small tow truck, maybe a Ford or GMC, and a black gray Tundra. Unfortunately turned into a rollover, and again, that was a loose cargo situation and a following too close. Not sure why you would carry that much stuff in an open cargo bag, because I see that happen a lot. Hopefully there was no critical injuries with that accident. And again, this is all happening on the 15th of June. And then there was also another accident on Pinal stretching between Octodillo and Chola Street on Pinal. The power line on the left south side of Pinal was destroyed. Seems like it was both a speeding and a failure to turn at a correct time. Praying no one was high or intoxicated. No way to tell unless they consent to a test. What's even worse was that it was a head-on impact, and it seems like someone was injured. The most logical way that this happened is that the car that was heading south on Pinal was speeding. Thank you. And it seems like someone was injured. The most logical way to...
If you would kind of wrap up your comments, but give him another couple minutes.
Again, trust me, I'm not going to say, I'm almost done. So finishing off this note, the most logical way that this happened is that the car that was heading south of Pinal was speeding while the car heading north, looking to turn left into the parking lot of the bar. They then collided while the car that was heading north was forced back, while the car heading south turned into the power line. A family of 4, a father and 3 girls were okay. And I'm sorry, and I have to say this, and I see that we have CGPD here, no disrespect to the work that you guys do, but you guys have to do better. There was actually an accident that happened on my street on McMurray, and as passionate as I am in trying to help and for the things that I've been trying to do, you guys didn't even have no one directing traffic on that accident that happened on Pinal that day. And so I say all that to say this. Last time I was here, I showed the council my handprint, and that was to say of how I am a vessel that God is using. Again, with everything that I do a lot. I try to be there for my community and help as much ways that I possibly can. Excuse my language a little bit. But I showed you guys that because of how passionate I am and because of where I'm being directed in life, what God has given me to do, what God is putting me in to do, and the communities that he wants me to serve and connect with. All that to say this, Casa Grande needs to step up and the state of Arizona needs to step up, completely in general. We need to have driver's education. We need to try to start that somewhere. I am more than willing to hop on the team and even possibly lead it if that's what it takes, because there's no reason why car accidents are escalating year after year after year and firearm deaths are nowhere near the rate as to what car accidents are. I did a little search, and if I'm not mistaken, here in the state of Arizona, about 60 to 70% of firearm deaths are caused of suicide and not by actual homicide. So the fact that we have car accidents that are more present than firearm-related deaths is baffling to me. So I say all that to say this. If no one else is going to step up, I'm willing to step up. I gave my number last time I was here. I was still awaiting a call to see if there was something that could be worked out, or if I could have a private meeting with the council to see if something can start to get going. But at this rate and at this point, just again, outside of CG and talking about the whole state in general, something needs to be done, some action needs to be taken. I'm sure it takes no money to change some traffic laws and update the driver's handbook. So, with that being said,
Thank you.
I have nothing else to say. I'm not sure if you guys still have my number. If you guys still want my number, more than freely willing to give it. If you guys want to meet, more than willing to meet anytime that you guys are free. But something needs to happen. I said this last time, and I'm still going to stand on this today because I'm here for a purpose. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to address the council? All right, seeing none, then I'm going to close the floor and we'll move to award of contracts. First item is item I-1. This is consider approval of resolution number 5549. Dwayne?
Thank you. Staff recommends the mayor and council award a contract to PCL Construction Incorporated for a guaranteed maximum price 2 for the wastewater reclamation facility improvements. The WRF requires a 6 million gallons a day capacity expansion, which will increase the capacity to 18 million gallons a day, and other upgrades to support anticipated growth and increased flows over the next several years. The project was commissioned to expand the capacity and improve reliability to treat additional flows and provide high-quality effluent for reuse. Growth within the city is progressing rapidly, therefore construction of the project now is prudent. The PCL contractors, the designer Wilson and Company, and the city will arrive at multiple guaranteed maximum prices. So this is actually number 2. There'll actually be one more after this. The project is to be performed in 2 phases. Phase 1 includes the pre-construction phase services, preparing and submitting the guaranteed maximum prices. Phase 2 will consist of multiple GMPs, developing the procurement of long lead construction materials. Some that were approved as previously in GMP 1. This GMP is for long lead electrical items and for the construction of the project. There'll be a future GMP. So right now we're just getting all the materials to build everything. While GMP 1 focused on long lead pumps, GMP 2 will procure the long lead electrical items, such as electrical panels, transformers, wiring, to provide the upgrades necessary. This will be the last GMP that we'll use for long lead items. The total amount of GMP 2 is $709,622. The scope and fee proposal that was submitted was negotiated with PCL Construction for this portion of the project. The amount is considered adequate and acceptable for the required CMAR services. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? Bob?
Dwayne, I'm not sure if I was following. Did I hear you say GMP 2 was 709,000?
That's correct.
Did you give us a number for GMP 1?
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
It was? Oh, okay. I thought we were addressing them both. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as I read this, it's a little confusing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Dwayne? All right, seeing none, then I will, thank you, Dwayne. Call for a resolution, please. Gloria?
Resolution number 5549, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting the proposal from PCL Construction, Inc. to provide construction manager at risk services for the water reclamation facility upgrade construction project, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing the transfer of budget authority, and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of resolution number 5549 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is item K. This is our ordinances and resolutions. Item K1, consider approval of resolution 5546. This is our kind of a PSPRS, our public safety personnel retirement system pension funding policy. And Scott, I see you there.
Mayor McFarland, members of the council, Arizona state law requires the city of Casa Grande to provide pension benefits to all of our employees. Those sworn members of the police and fire departments are covered under the public safety personnel retirement system in separate plans. Our police and fire plans are two of the 226 separate plans under the PSPRS. Every one of these plans is individually actuarially rated to determine the necessary employer contribution that's added to the employee contribution amount that's set by state law to try to ensure sufficient funds to pay retirement benefits promised to these employees. The Arizona legislature controls and has controlled over a long period of time the benefits provided in these plans, and that we and all of the other individual employers are responsible for. In other words, the legislature has written the checks and we have to make good on those checks. Over the course of time, the unfunded liability for all of the plans grew, and ours grew, for our two plans, grew up to about $56 million. In early 2021, we brought you a plan to finally recognize and proactively deal with those liabilities. The plan involved issuing debt outside of the pension system to pay down the entire unfunded liability amounts and to make the annual bond payments resulting reduction in employer contribution rates. Our consultants estimated the savings over the life of the bonds to be about $33.5 million. You all saw the short and long-term wisdom of this bold plan, and 2 years ago, you authorized the issuance of $63 million in bond debt. The most recent actuarial reports on our two plans were received a few months back, and we're seeing for the first time since paying down the unfunded liability just how this plan is working out. In the report provided to you this evening, you can see that both of our plans are more than 100% funded. 100.2% for police, and 101.9% for fire. What's more, in the process, you established a reserve fund of $5.3 million to be available on a yearly basis should our funding levels fall below 100%, and no funds have been needed to this point from that reserve fund. Arizona Revised Statutes 38 requires the city to annually adopt a pension funding policy reflecting the most recent actuarial information. We're asking this evening that you adopt the report that has been provided for fiscal year 23-24 and accept the city's share of assets and liabilities under the PSPRS actuarial valuation report. This is staff's opportunity tonight to thank you for your support and foresight on the plan that was presented to you 2 years ago, and maybe just a little bit to celebrate the fact that the plan is working as anticipated. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments from council?
Well, just
Lisa?
a comment that I am glad it's working, because of course we were all hesitant, when we did approve this, and we were hoping it did. So congratulations, I am happy to see that. Do you feel that number is, obviously 101%, it looks like the funded ratio, but Do you feel good about that? Do you think it should have been even more? I mean, I know we have a 5 million reserve, but is that comfortable for you?
Well, again, this is the legacy liability, so all of the new
Right.
employees coming in are coming in a different plan. So, I think we have some confidence that paying the normal cost that we're paying on an annual basis, with the reserve fund backing us up, I feel that over the next few years, I think we're going to see some stability.
Right.
The market, the investment market can take a big toll on that, but I think we have reason for optimism about that. No crystal ball.
I know. And Scott, is this a trend that many cities are doing? I mean, is it common for them to do what we did?
They're starting
Okay.
to.
Larry may want to comment on that particular
Some of them
point.
didn't do it soon enough.
Right, yeah.
That's the answer, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
There were a number of cities that did move in
Jumped
a
on
similar
early,
path that we
like we
elected to
did.
move. We are one of the, I believe it's 3 cities that I think hit it at the best, actually made the
Yeah.
decision to issue the debt at the lowest interest rate. And so that essentially gives us a little more protection
Right.
in the long term. And so, so I agree with Scott. It was perfect time, and certainly appreciate the council's support on it.
Matt?
And every time we talk about this, I like to reiterate, first, I went to a great seminar on this at the League of Cities that, Scott, you actually chaired and put on, which helped us understand it. But I want to say this every time, is that we're statutorily required by the state to participate in this. So the reason we got in that position is because of the state
Right.
statutes. We were not controlling it ourselves. So we did take our own destiny into our hands by issuing this debt, which again, like Lisa said, I'm very proud of. And it, you know, we owe that money to the people who served our city, and we just have to find a way to pay for it responsibly. And by saving $33 million over the life, I think that's something to be pretty proud of, so good job. But again, the state got us here, so we're just managing it the best we can.
I remember when I first came on as mayor, we were at about $42 million in deficit in terms of our unfunded liability. And I went to meetings up in Prescott and a bunch of other places, and they gave us some advice on how to, lower it. We paid our bill early, like, so that we didn't have to pay interest rates. We kept paying when somebody went into the drop program, so we kept paying into the retirement plan. But then 2 years later, we're deeper in the hole than we were when we started. So we finally kind of had to make that decision that, you know what, we've got to fix this. And so we did, and the council and staff, staff put a lot of work into this and really gave us an opportunity to fund all of the retirement systems and quit paying and all the debt we were paying in terms of the interest rate. And the state, because the state required that the system be paid like an 8% bonus, whether the market was making 8% or not. So just to short circuit this, but it really was a huge move on the city's part. To Matt's point, $33 million we're going to save in the life of these bonds and on our system. And so it was a good move, and thank you for the report that it looks like it's working. Even though we have the reserve there, we did put a reserve in there just in case the actuarials come back in and they jack up our rate again, so we can actually pay it off and keep the system whole. So it was a good move, and thank you for that great information. Any other comments or questions?
Just thank you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. All right. Seeing none, then I'll consider resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5546, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting fiscal year 2023 to 2024 public safety personnel retirement system pension funding policy, accepting the city's share of assets and liabilities under the public safety personnel retirement system actuarial valuation report, and authorizing all actions necessary to implement the policy.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve resolution number 5546 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, we'll move into our public meetings section of the meeting tonight. We'll start with our first item on the agenda, which is L1. And I think you're going to kind of cover all four at once, and then we'll address each one separately.
Yes, I have an overview slide too, just to.
Okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So here's just a little overview of how I'm going to present the four requests tonight. I'm going to go over the current zoning of the Santa Cruz Crossing PAD, overview of the minor general plan, and the three proposed PADs. I will also go over the community efforts, outreach efforts, and then go into detail on each of the requests. After each one, we'll have a public hearing and council vote. So with regards to the existing zoning, this site, again, is located at the southeast corner of Truckle and Rodeo. The entire site consists of 97 acres. The current Santa Cruz Crossing PAD consists of single-family development, senior living, medium density, and commercial uses. This site does not have certificate of assured water supply, and therefore areas A and B, shown in yellow on this map, cannot be developed as single-family subdivisions. So the four requests are for a minor general plan amendment for approximately 30 acres, and this is part of the Innovations PAD. And this request is from Neighborhoods to Community Corridor. The first PAD is the Innovations Villas PAD. Again, it's approximately 30 acres and is located at the southeast corner of Rodeo Road and Pueblo. This zone change request is from single-family residential and medium-density multifamily PAD to PAD for medium-density multifamily. The second PAD is the Village PAD. This is located at the southeast corner of Rodeo and Truckle and is 35 acres. This zone change is from commercial, senior living and medium-density multifamily PAD to PAD for commercial and high-density residential multifamily. And the third and last request is the Enclave PAD. It's approximately 31 acres and is located south of the southeast corner of Rodeo and Truckle. And this is a zone change from commercial and single-family residential PAD to a PAD for commercial and medium-density residential multifamily. Did want to talk about the community outreach efforts so far. I did send out notifications of applications in review in January. This resulted in a neighborhood meeting in February. And from that first meeting, it did result in additional setbacks associated for the multifamily site within the Villages PAD, which I'll go to in detail shortly. Staff did receive a number of comments and prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which are attached to the RCA. Majority of these concerns include height of the buildings, density, traffic along Rodeo, as well as drainage. Prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I did receive a petition of opposition with a total of 51 signatures. This does trigger a supermajority vote on 2 out of the 3 PAD votes, which I will also describe shortly. And from that petition of opposition, the applicant did have a second neighborhood meeting that was held last Monday. Also, myself and Director Tice has had multiple meetings with residents to go over these requests in detail. And I did want to note that the technical aspects regarding traffic and drainage will be addressed at the major site plan if these requests are approved. So with that, I'll go into the first request, which is the general plan amendment for the Innovations Villa site. Again, this site is located at the southeast corner of Rodeo and Pueblo. It's approximately 30 acres, and this minor general plan amendment request is from Neighborhoods to Community Corridor. In the neighborhoods land use category, medium density residential is limited to 25 acres. This amendment is necessary due to the applicants proposing 30 acres of medium density development. Looking at minor versus major general plan amendment determinations, per the general plan, amendments less than 50 acres, regardless of land use category, shall be classified as a minor amendment. So the site is 30 acres, and the minor amendments are to be considered in conjunction with the zone request. This one is. General plan review criteria is described in the staff report in detail. I will go over the two highlighted items. The first one is to describe and detail how each of the general plan principles from the land use element sections are achieved with the proposed general plan amendment. Number 3 is to increase the range of housing choices and products available to all members of the community. And number 4 is to support development of vacant infill lots that can be efficiently and effectively served by municipal services. And the applicant's response to these are that the increased demand for a variety of housing options, the site proposes the development of horizontal cottage-style multifamily with single-story homes, giving residents access to townhomes that feel more like single-family homes. And in response to infill, development of this infill property reduces the number of vacant infill lots and will follow all applicable and city local government requirements to be effectively served by municipal services. Number 6 is to describe in detail how each of the general plan goals and/or action steps are achieved by the proposed amendment. One of the goals of the community corridor land use category is to transition community corridor areas to become more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environments, particularly along major street corridors. And one of the action steps is to encourage connections between buildings, public sidewalks, and streets and parking areas surrounding land uses where appropriate. The applicant's response is that the site places residential uses in close proximity to future residential and non-residential uses, encouraging multimodal transportation options such as walking, bicycling, and transit between commercial and residential uses. And staff finds the applicant's responses to the general plan review criteria has been met for the minor general plan amendment. So with that, the May 4th Planning Commission meeting, the commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for a minor general plan amendment request to amend the land use category from neighborhoods to community corridors for approximately 30 acres located near the southeast corner of Rodeo and Pueblo.
Do you want to address the questions on each one then, or?
Yeah, so we can go over any questions and then open it for public hearing. And
And you want to do the public hearing then after each
yes,
presentation?
yes.
Okay. All right, so are there any questions from council? Go ahead, Mr. Lavender.
Is the applicant being asked to widen Rodeo from 2 to 4 lanes?
If you don't mind, I will, I'll discuss that in the next presentation.
Thank you.
Just listen to them all.
Huh? Yeah, I think that might be appropriate here because it's all part of the same program.
In this case, the applicant will be making Rodeo Road improvements along their entire frontage, but it's far more than our standard building of half-street improvements. They actually will be using the existing Rodeo Road and converting it to a frontage, creating a median to the south of that, and then building a new 4-lane facility south of the existing Rodeo Road, frontage road. So yes, they will be making Rodeo Road improvements from Treco to Colorado, including a frontage road and a 4-lane Rodeo Road facility.
So they're actually going to dedicate some of their land to, well, additional land, not more than normal, to Rodeo Road.
That is true, yes, Mr. Mayor.
And is the developer here? Did you want to speak on this, or do you want to, or speak on the whole project? I thought we were going to kind of talk about the whole project, then have an opportunity to
Then we'll have each public hearing.
each public hearing. Larry, am I not correct there, or do we want to do this individually? I know we have to vote on it individually, but
Would it be helpful to go through the next piece?
yeah, I think it'd be helpful to kind of address the whole project, and then we'll bring the developer up and he can talk about the whole project. Is that okay? Well, we're okay to do that, aren't we?
I believe I'm going to have Brett to weigh in, but I think we need a public hearing on each of these, right, Brett?
We will, we can do that.
But I do think that it can be appropriate for the mayor and the council to ask that they get an overview of the entire project, but we will have to have
Right.
after the overview, we'll go one by
We'll go one by one.
Public hearing.
Correct.
And a vote on each one.
Got it,
So
and that
understand how they all fit.
way then the developer can talk about the whole project prior to us going into the public
Individual,
hearings. Is that okay?
That's fine. We're going to give you an overview with a little more meat than the one we just gave you.
Okay. So you can sit down, we'll call you when we get done. Yeah, you're good, you're good. But we'll call you back up.
If you want to sit here.
We're going to call you back up after we review the whole project.
Okay, great.
That way you don't have to address each individual project, you can vote or address the whole project.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to throw kink in the works there.
Okay, so the Innovations Villa PAD so the current Santa Cruz Crossing PAD consists of single-family development and medium-density residential development. Again, this is located at the southeast corner of Rodeo and Pueblo. Their total density for these two sites was approximately 5.8 dwelling units per acre. The proposed Innovations Villa PAD is for medium-density residential, and per their conceptual site plan, they're proposing 230 units with a density of 7.64 dwelling units per acre. I want to note that this is much lower than the maximum community corridor allows at 25 DUs per acre. So for each of the PAD review criteria, the staff report goes into a detail on all of these. I will be covering the highlighted ones for each of the topics. So with regards to conformance to the city's zoning ordinance, this complies with adopted PAD residential design standards for medium-density development. They're requesting the setbacks for the perimeter of 15 feet, and per the residential design standards, they're limited to 25 feet adjacent to single-family residential. And their building height is for single-story homes limited to a max height of 28 feet. I did want to talk about their architectural design. They are considering ranch, prairie, farmhouse, and craftsman style, designed to look like single-family homes. And the bottom elevations is what would be facing Rodeo Road. Looking at traffic and parking conditions, again, the site will be accessible from Pueblo and Colorado. The site does not have direct access from Rodeo Road. And one of the, as part of the development that's being carried forward from the Santa Cruz Crossing PAD are the improvements to Rodeo Road. This includes a frontage road that will be in front of the existing residents on Rodeo Road with a median and then full build out of Rodeo Road. So as you know, that as currently Rodeo Road stands, it is unsafe with these driveways fronting Rodeo Road, which is classified as a minor arterial. The two developments along Rodeo will be required to construct this frontage road. Here's a little conceptual example of this. And one of the items that came out of the second neighborhood meeting was moving the sidewalk from the north in front of the homes. Under the currently proposed design, the frontage road had the sidewalk within the median, and this is supported by the applicant and staff as well. And then I also wanted to show kind of the Rodeo Road section layout. This shows the frontage road that would consist of sidewalk, parking, as well as two-way traffic, a median, and the full build-out of Rodeo Road south of that. And then from the existing homes to the proposed buildings, it's approximately 234 feet. And you'd want to note that at the time of major site plan, it will be subject to the PD guide, the residential design standards, as well as the zoning code. So that's where we will review their TIA drainage at that time. So looking again at community outreach efforts per section 1768-300.c of the city code regarding public protests against PADs, if 20% or more of property owners within 150 feet of the proposed site is received, it requires a supermajority vote. So I did receive an opposition petition with 51 total signatures. For this site, within 150 feet, there are 50 parcels indicated by the blue line here. There are 11 confirmed property owners, and this does meet the 20% threshold for a supermajority vote. Okay. So at the May 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the zone change request from PAD medium and low density development to PAD for medium density development for the Innovations Villas at Colorado PAD. Any questions on this PAD? Okay. Moving on to the next request. This is for the Village PAD located at the southeast corner of Treckle and Rodeo. The current Santa Cruz Crossing PAD consists of commercial, assisted living, and patio homes. I do want to point out, under the current PAD for assisted living, the PAD states that it would follow R3 zoning standards, which would allow a 35-foot building height at just a 20-foot setback. And the PAD homes, per the PAD, would follow R2 standards, which would allow 28 building height. The proposed PAD, Village PAD, has 9 acres of commercial and 26 acres of multifamily. Their conceptual site plan consists of 432 units with a density of approximately 17.64 dwelling units per acre. So again, looking at the conformance with the city's general plan, under the community corridor, multifamily is allowed to have a density of up to 25 DUs per acre. Again, they're proposing the development at 17.64, which is significantly less than the maximum amount. And then one of the goals of the community corridor is to promote diverse business, retail, and office uses in community corridor areas. One of the action steps is to encourage mixed-use commercial and retail structures to create a high density of uses along major corridors. And another goal is to promote high-density residential uses along urban corridors and near major commercial centers, and to encourage higher-density residential developments on infill sites and along key corridors. And while this does check all the boxes for community corridors, the PAD does address compatibility with the adjacent Rancho Grande development to the north. One of the items that came out of the first neighborhood meeting was additional setback requirements adjacent to Rodeo Road. So for buildings siting Rodeo, so going north and south, there is an 80-foot setback, and for buildings fronting Rodeo, that would be fronting or east-west, there is a 125-foot setback. Again, this site will also address the Rodeo Road improvements and frontage roads. They are requesting a building height of 36 feet as well, 3-story maximum. And again, here is the section line of the proposed Rodeo Road improvements and proposed site development. And there is 379 feet between the existing homes and the proposed buildings. Looking at the commercial site, these uses will be majority permitted and conditionally permitted in the B2 zoning district. Setbacks requests are for 15 for the front, side, and rear, and 20 for adjacent to residential. These proposed setbacks align with the community corridor design standards, guidelines for moving buildings closer to the street. And again, at time of major site plan, all the technical aspects regarding traffic, drainage, and access will be evaluated for both the community and multifamily portion. Looking at the community outreach efforts, again, this did trigger a supermajority vote. Within 150 feet, shown on with the blue line, there are 27 parcels, and there are 7 confirmed property owners. And at the May 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the zone change request from PAD commercial, senior living, and medium density residential to PAD for commercial and high density development for the Village PAD, again located at the southeast corner of Rodeo and Treckle, with the following conditions of approval. Any questions from council on this request?
I think we want to hear from the developer at this point in time.
There's one more.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So third and final PAD request is for the Enclave PAD. This is located just south of the southeast corner of Truckle and Rodeo. The Santa Cruz Crossing PAD consists of commercial office uses for 6.5 acres and single-family residential for 28 acres. Again, the site, oops, sorry, there we go, shows the proposed conceptual plan. And again, this single-family development does not have certificate of assured water and cannot be completed as proposed. The proposed Enclave PAD consists of 10.94 acres of commercial and 20.8 acres of medium-density residential. Their conceptual site plan consists of 146 units and has a density of approximately 6.99 dwelling units per acre. Again, looking at conformance with the city's zoning ordinance, for the commercial site, the uses are majority of uses permitted or conditionally permitted in the B2 zoning district, as well as self-storage. Setback requests for the perimeter is 15 feet. Adjacent to single-family development or single-family zoning districts would be 25 feet. And 0 feet setback for single-story storage when the structure functions as a perimeter wall. Again, landscaping will be evaluated at the major site plan. However, additional landscaping may be considered at that time as well. Building height, again, is limited to 36 feet or 3 stories. Looking at the residential component, again, this complies with the adopted PAD residential design standards for medium-density residential. Their setback request is 15 feet and 25 feet adjacent to single-family residential development with a building height of 28 feet. Their architectural design standards consist of Spanish, Craftsman, and Prairie, and they're proposed to look like single-family homes with 2-story homes and a two-car garage. And again, at major site plan, they'll be subject to the PAD guide, residential design standards, as well as the zoning code, which would include TIA and drainage. This request did not trigger a supermajority vote. So at the May 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the zone change request from PAD commercial office and low-density residential to PAD for commercial and medium-density developments for the Enclave PAD. So that concludes my presentation.
I do have a question on this particular project. So it doesn't have a certificate, they don't have certificates of assured water, right?
Correct.
So can this project be built?
So, yeah, because they'll still be rented. They'll just look like single-family homes.
Oh, okay,
So they'll
So they'll own the
function
land,
like a
they'll
home.
own the land and then rent the
Yeah, so
buildings?
they'll be rentals. They'll function but just look like a single-family development.
Okay,
It's a build-to-rent.
It's a built-to, yeah, built-to-rent.
okay.
Just
all right.
bigger than
It's just a
what we've
little bigger
Just-
version,
Right.
A little different.
because it's like 3-bedroom, right?
Yeah, they look more like little larger homes than typical
Okay,
build-to-rents,
okay.
yes. Mhm.
All right. So do we want to talk about this particular one, or do you want to pick a spot and talk about, which one do you want to ask
I
about?
just have a general question.
Go ahead.
So the developer's responsible for the
Road improvements.
road improvements from Truckle to Colorado. Is there a
Yes.
plan from Colorado to Rodeo, or is it gonna squeeze from four and the frontage roads at 2?
So the frontage road would be between Amarillo and Colorado. There would be just the regular improvements from Treckle to Amarillo. But the frontage road is just along
But from Colorado to Rodeo, is there anybody responsible for keeping that 4 lanes? or
To Peart.
Or Peart, yeah.
Yeah, west of Colorado, we don't have specific plans on how that transition will work yet. But clearly, we will have to look at that design and make that transition work. Those are details that if this general plan amendment and the PADs are approved, we will work out before we approve any major site plans allowing construction to occur.
I think
those-
I meant east. East from Colorado to
East,
Pearl.
yes, excuse me, east of
I think
Colorado.
Mr. Raines can answer that question.
Correct.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, typically, and I know that the council and I suspect many of our residents are aware of the fact that our general policy related to capital improvements is that the developers would be responsible for making the improvements. There is not a current plan that I'm aware of that would be east of this particular site, Paul. So ultimately, from the eastern boundary to Peart Road.
That's correct, but we have to figure out how to transition from the 4 lanes back to 2 lanes.
Correct. As I've expressed to several council members, one of the items that staff is beginning to take a look at is additional transportation infrastructure improvements that the city would actually put into the capital improvement program. We have not had any significant dialogue on this. This is certainly an area that if the development were to occur and this type of infrastructure built, that it would be something that we ultimately would look at with the city actually serving as a capital improvement program. There are elements that are required of that. There's right-of-way dedication and a variety of things that would be necessary. But essentially, what you're going to see as part of our new development impact fee study that we're working on now is that we will have intentionally begin to build infrastructure in some of these infill areas to improve the capacity in the traveling lanes and whatnot in years to come. So I don't know if that's answering the Mayor Pro Tem's question specifically. There is not a developer that's prepared to build that. So in my mind, unless one comes forward in the very near term, it's something that the city would have to evaluate if we wanted to make that connection point.
We've done it. We did it on Peart. Most recently, we did it on Cottonwood, so there is some precedents that we have established, and I am in support of, and I think my fellow council members are too, in that as we build these roads and as developers come in and the majority of the road is built, we need to finish them. They need to be finished, and if we need to finish it all the way to Peart, if rodeo needs to be finished to Peart, then that's a very hard conversation that we're going to have. So at least from this mayor's perspective and this council member's perspective. So I want that out there because I believe that that's the right thing to do. Because we as citizens then can take advantage of the improvements now and not wait for a developer to build out on their land that they build. And in the end, we'll ask that developer, once they come in and they develop, then we ask them to help pay for the road improvements that we've already done.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just build on that, the fortunate thing is that you've referenced the Peart Road. We've done other improvements such as on Cottonwood Lane, and the city code currently has a provision that would allow for us to create a payback type of a scenario for a development that if it occurred within a certain amount of time. Obviously, when you're and the mayor and council is well aware of this, we've just gone through our annual budget process. When you're, it's about priorities. It's about prioritizing projects over other projects. And I think most of our staff is aware of the fact that there is certainly a growing amount of comments related to transportation corridors in Casa Grande, which is driving part of the philosophical and policy shift in the development impact fee study and those projects that will be actually constructed. But it is a shift from what we typically would require. We would typically wait for the next series of development to actually build the infrastructure. That creates this, I use the word scalloping, the widening and narrowing in the community today, but it is something that the message that the mayor is sending, I've had discussions with other council members, is something that we have to evaluate as a staff and begin to make some changes on that front.
And I know it's not a simple answer, Larry, so I understand that. I don't want to make it sound like that's a simple solution, but it's certainly something we need to look at very strongly. We even asked the citizens to pass a bond to complete McCartney Road and to complete Treckle Road. So that way we're not waiting for development to finish those projects and make those roads usable and safe for our community. And I think that's probably the most important thing that we need to do as responsible council members. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
You pretty much said it all.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. I think at this point in time, if we could maybe ask the developer, or, I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead. We can still ask questions. I just
Okay.
was going to bring
So I have questions on both the Village PAD and the Enclave PAD. On the Village PAD, one of my concerns was partially addressed in seeing that it is 379 feet from the existing residences to the first building that would be within that PAD. And my question, and I don't know if it's rhetorical at this point, it may be for the developer, I'm a little concerned about jumping to high density in that neighborhood, and I'm curious what the drop to medium density would present as far as the size of the buildings and the number of units that they can have, and if that would or would not be feasible for the developer. If it is not, the concern that I have heard is the buildings facing or closest to Rodeo Road, those being 3 stories high. And I'll throw out the other question, is if medium density is not feasible for the developer, would they consider the thought of making the buildings closest to Rodeo maximum at 2 stories as opposed to 3 stories? So that's my general question. As I said, it may be more appropriate for the developer to speak on those. Would you like to respond, or should I go to my other question on the Enclave?
For this one, I'll just note that per our residential design standards for multifamily, we classify medium density as 2 to 12 dwelling units per acre and high density at 13 to 25.
And isn't that more traditional apartments?
So that would be more traditional apartments. Medium density is really build to rent, townhomes,
Okay.
manufactured home parks.
So maybe if I can go to my second question, would it be feasible for the developer to remain at high density but limit the height of the buildings closest to Rodeo Road?
Yeah, so that would be a question for the
Okay,
applicant.
I just want to throw that out. And the question on the Enclave PAD, in one of the satellite images, I know we're seeing the north leg of the Santa Cruz Wash cuts through to the north of the Enclave PAD. And my question is, if and when are we going to make any requirements of the developer to maintain that as some sort of green belt wash area, perhaps a semi-park area? I have voiced concerns before on any improvements that go in on the south leg of the Santa Cruz, but I've never seen anything come in that envelops the north leg of the Santa Cruz. And my concern has always been that these washes will turn into a concrete ditch, and I don't want to see that. I want to see it utilized in some attractive way to reflect the water that it does get and the foliage and trees that are there currently. So I don't know if that's even been discussed, but that's my question on the Enclave.
So during the major site plan, the drainage will be addressed. I do believe that they will probably have to grade it and then do additional improvements with the Clomar-Lomar that would be required for this area. Again, that's all at the major site plan when they dig into the weeds, per se, on this. I will say that an applicant may be able to address this a little more, but they are utilizing this area as open space for both the Enclave as well as the Innovations Project, and we'll have trails associated with, in this area.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'd kind of like to hear from the developer.
Okay.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So at this point in time, I would like to ask if the developer would like to come up and address this project, kind of give us your overall vision here, and you know, maybe address some of the questions that that have been asked in terms of the two-story opportunity or option, if you will, and or, you know, even addressing how far that setback really is. It's actually pretty good distance. That's 379 yards. That's a football field and a quarter. So that's a pretty big distance from the homes on the north to the buildings that are on the north side of your project, and the apartment complexes basically that are the three-story. Please.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Larry Miller.
Hey Larry, if you can,
Put that
but
microphone up.
he doesn't need to be timed because we're not in the public hearing portion.
What, can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay.
Better, because we have people watching on TV too.
So 2 things. We have 3 minutes, is that it?
No,
No.
you can
have more.
speak, you can speak a little longer, because
Good.
this is part of the presentation.
Okay, great. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having us here tonight. Larry Miller, and I represent Innovation Villas, the main focus, if you will, for this project. And what I'd like to do in talking about the overall project is let everyone, including the audience here, know that this just didn't happen overnight. This was a complete collaborative effort between the staff and us in working out minute details with the surrounding area in consideration. What I'm talking about, and the issue that Councilman Huddleston brought up, was the 3-story versus 2-story. Not that it's super germane, but we just did a project at 59th and Dobbins and Levine in Phoenix, where right across the street, we put a setback of an additional 50 feet for a 3-story project, and it worked great. The visual is there because we planted trees along the road that buffered that view. In this case, from the porch of the homes to the north of our project, if you stand on the porch and look toward our buildings, trees block the buildings. It's so far back. It's 3/4 of a football field. So there isn't the typical concern about the height unless you're not really looking at the visual. So when you see the visual, you see trees, you don't see the top of the buildings. So in consideration of the thought about a 2-story to 3-story, we already took that into consideration by doing that setback. And that was something the staff wanted us to do to make sure we didn't have any issues like that. So the things we're bringing up have been addressed, have been thought about, and in theory have been solved. The other issue too is the drainage. We're really big on drainage. We've done drainage issues for a better part of our multi-decade development career. And we'd like to have what I would consider a multiple use out of a drainage track, like maybe a trail, frisbee golf, the ability to meander and walk. We do that all the time. It adds value. And instead of thinking it might cost, we look at the value. So our goal is to build a really good beehive that the bees can come to, which is why we integrated the retail that we can walk to and integrate that with walkways around the project so people don't have to get in their car to get to the retail. And the retail ideally would be neighborhood commercial convenience, what the people locally need to have. We don't know what those retailers are today, but we will make sure that what they do get is exactly that, neighborhood retail convenience commercial. So it's an integrated project, and overall, let's face it, the city has a need for housing. So we addressed that need as best we could to give a diversification of product, and a product that would then hit different tiers of people and their economic capabilities. So it's a very integrated project from day one. And with staff's help and with our concepts, I think we've solved much of those problems. The issue about the drainage overall, we're forced to make sure that we carry our water. We don't have a choice. We have to do that. We have to make sure we have a traffic study to make certain that the traffic can handle the people that we put in our projects. So it's not a voluntary issue, it's a requirement. And so what we'll do is have a traffic study to make sure whatever the final recommendations are, we meet, and then it solves the issues. So we had traffic questions in the beginning, and we did a preliminary study and found out if we do these things, then we shouldn't have any issues. To a certain degree, the improvements we're doing make it safer for the people across the street, because then they have their own barrier that kids can't run in the road and get hit. So there's a barrier there, there's a median there. And so it's actually safer from my perspective, humbly, but, so we've taken those into consideration, and that's the overall of the project. And I think that staff gave a great presentation of what the project's about, and I think at this point, if you have questions, I'd like to answer any more questions you might have, if any.
I've got one.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So, thank you. And I want to commend this developer and the neighborhood people, because everyone has met, everyone's been courteous, and even Neighborhood Concern says you guys have been great working with them, answering questions. If you could go, Jacqueline, to the one slide with the view, 379 feet. And we're going to make you flip back and forth a lot.
There it is.
So that's from the houses there. And you say that you got the trees in between cars. You know, the road is no small feat, and that's a very good thing for a heavy lift for the city and for that. But the one concern from the neighborhood I'm getting, and if you flip back one slide, Jacqueline, is mainly, from what I heard, to the people, the person I met with said, they're just mainly concerned about these 3-story buildings against Rodeo Road, namely this one, you know, the one middle one that's going east and west there. And I was looking at it, and I mean, would it be possible just to move that one building back to where those covered parkings are there? You'd still have the same number of buildings, same number of thing, and help the neighborhood out, or does that mess up? And a lot of this too, we're dealing with the site plan, which we're not even really approving tonight, but just kind of saying, would you be amenable to something to help them out? Because I think the 379 once you see it, that's a long way.
That's a long way.
I mean, it's a football field and a quarter.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Well, see, I guess conceptually, what has happened is this discussion happened with staff, and that's why we did the 379 foot. So what you're asking to do, we did, and this is the result of it. So from a visual perspective, I can't recall having this big of a setback to a 3-story project ever. So this is Herculean to a certain degree, and if someone's concerned about the height, if you go back to the one table that showed the view corridor, you're going to see trees. You're not even going to see the buildings. So it's been dealt with, I think, at that point. And obviously, there'll be good-looking buildings, too. So we're upgrading the quality of the apartment visually with landscaping, and then making certain that it meets minimum standards.
And it's desert landscaping, right? I mean, it's Arizona landscaping.
You know, for the...
I mean, it's probably up to the final landscape plan, but...
For the drainage tracks, we really like doing indigenous plants. We like keeping it Arizona native. And if you look at our project Santan Heights in the East Valley, it's still great today. And it was seeded and done with a lot of indigenous plants, and people use it for trails and playing and so forth. And for this type of landscape, it's all Arizona type. It's what we like. We don't particularly care for some of the trees that have a lot of falling features. We like more evergreen. But yeah, it's a very, very different colors. We like that too.
And I think I heard you say earlier in the drainage, you do more like a riprap type stuff, and so you're not doing the concrete like we were talking. It's going to be pretty native looking with open space.
Yeah, we don't need to do riprap. I mean...
Oh, you don't even need to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So it's going to be even more just
effectively, we're going to be told what we can do and can't do, and from our perspective, what we can do that makes it more user-friendly, that's what we want. I'm out there playing. I mean,
with the trails and open space.
Exactly. And we probably will have a certain component like a frisbee golf, which we've done many times, Frisbee golf throughout. People use it when it's not raining. When it's raining, they're not out there. So we love Frisbee golf. Little park course is something we do too. And that'll be throughout the project. It's a mini master plan is what it is. So it's a master plan development in a mini size. It's almost 100 acres. So with that, we put trails, we put a park course typically throughout in certain spots, and we love Frisbee golf. In fact, our Maricopa project, they have a state championship at the Frisbee golf. They have in the past. So it works well. People like it, brings people out, gets them engaged in the community, and that's what this is really about. We try to do that wherever we can.
Go ahead, Lisa.
You know, dog parks are popular too in these apartment complexes.
We do have a dog park.
All right, good. No, and Larry, thank you for being here, and thanks to staff. And I know this is difficult because, of course, when you meet with the neighbors, those homeowners that are close to this, I understand their concerns. But something is going to go there eventually, especially as our community continues to grow. So it's always a challenge for people to understand. But I'm really pleased with this project just because, and I know I can tell staff has been working with you because this is exactly what we've been talking about. We want, and especially a location like this. It's an infill project, it has mixed use, it has diverse housing options for, a variety of different people. So,
As retail.
Retail, the commercial piece is so critical because people want to walk, around and get a coffee or go to a little store or whatever. So, but of course I, listen to some of the neighbors and their concerns are exactly, what Councilmember Huddleston and Herman talked about is the visual. The two-story is their big issue. I think they understand, some of the other pieces, but it's that visual piece. I didn't realize it was 379 feet. That is a long way. So I hope that, I appreciate you working with them. It sounds like you've been really engaged, with the neighborhood meetings and working with our staff to try to address some of the issues that they have. But I just think 379 feet, when you're looking out a window, I don't know if you're really looking at a big three-story building. So I kind of had a question, that you brought up, as far as the two-story, if there's a possibility, at least those couple buildings right there, but I don't know if it's going to really make a difference being that far away. But I hope that, we still have a need for housing. We're still under, at least I know Larry shared with me some of the numbers where we are with our housing options, and we're still, 10% lower than, the state and, the other counties. So we definitely have a need. I do think that there's going to be a point where we are doing a study to see where we're going, because we are approving more and more of these build-to-rent, single-family rentals, apartment complexes. So I think there is going to be a point where we're going to have to see, okay, now where are we with this? These numbers, and that's something that we're talking about, and we're going to do a study. But at this point, this is a need for our community, and I hope the community members realize that when we are making these decisions, we are dealing with experts that are doing these housing studies, with jobs. The mayor and our staff are dealing with employers every day, people that are coming in and bringing jobs, and they need people to work in these facilities. And we want people to live in our community, so maybe it'll reduce the traffic on the freeway. So it's growth. I know we're hesitant about growth, but there's so many great things that come with having, amenities and housing options like this. So I appreciate you being open to working with our neighbors and our staff, and I hope that when we come to the, major site plan, maybe there's some, talking, because I know it says maximum of, 3 stories, but maybe, you can continue to just have that dialogue and, see where we can go. But I think it seems more than fair with 379 feet and you working with our staff at this point, so, and our neighbors, our residents, I should say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments.
A couple things. My concern was the entrances and where people were coming in and out. the additional lane, the road size, and the three-story is something. And I looked at Matt because when you gave, how far away it was, like football field. I mean, for me, that's something that I can visualize. I went out there, I went out there this weekend. I drove it. I looked at it. I kind of measured it out myself. And I think it is a good compromise. I do thank you for meeting with our citizens, because I think it's really important that they have the voice, and you gave them that, and you compromise. Our staff are excellent, and I know that they do their homework every day. But I'm concerned about the three-story versus the two-story, just because of their concerns. And I do think that once the trees are there, and they're, I think that they will be happy with that. But it's the going from A to Z to getting to that point that is going to disturb that neighborhood. But we have to be respectful that we do need housing, and this is a good option for us. So thank you for being respectful of our citizens.
Thank you. We tried.
Any other questions for the developer? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, any last comments, Paul, Jacqueline, before I open the hearing?
No.
All right, so now this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing for the first resolution, which is the 5273.20. This is the minor amendment to the City of Casa Grande General Plan 2030. So
This is not the corner site, right? This is the.
This is the minor amendment. This isn't any of the sites per se. It is about one site.
The site's
Right.
located between Pueblo and Colorado alignment.
It's the site.
Yeah, it's the far right site, the furthest east site.
Correct. Along Rodeo.
All right, so I will open the floor to any comments. I would ask that you please state your name and your address for the records, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. This is again on the minor amendment to the City Casa Grande General Plan.
Just to verify, this is the one from Pueblo to Colorado?
Well, it's the amendment.
The amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm in the right spot, that's all. All right, I'm Lisa Miller. I live at 1298 East Rodeo Road. Some of you are familiar with me for various reasons. The reason for my speaking today concerns all of this in general, but in particular, the pictured area. So thanks for all the different meetings that have been had. The variety of housing is already available in this city. They're not really offering anything in addition to, unless you look at the fourplexes. We already have those too. It feels like there's not a lot yet planned. Even Mr. Raines alluded to that. There's some studying that still needs to be done. I'm asking you to take your time on this, just like I asked for zoning and planning to take their time. There are some pieces that still need to be planned that are going to affect the current residents. And while I appreciate the addition of a sidewalk on our side of the street in one of the plans, I guess at the major site plan, most of my concerns will be addressed, but that feels a little bit like we're holding a carrot out in front of us. Just wait for the next meeting, just wait for the next meeting, just wait for the next meeting, we'll get it right. I don't know that you're going to get it right, and I'm not anti-growth. Far from it. I am pro-growth. I'm pro-smart growth. I'm pro let's take care of the citizens in this town too. I look out at CG Mountain right now. I look out at Pikachu Peak right now. I will not see any of that, despite how beautiful the trees might be and how beautiful the landscaping might be. I will no longer see that view, and that's the piece that's breaking my heart on this one. I get infill. This doesn't feel like urban infill area to me. There was a time in this town when Rancho Grande was on the outskirts. I have friends whose parents would not allow them to drive that far from town. So I get a little emotional on it. My apologies. Now let's get back into my logical brain. Drainage concerns, garbage truck access, mail delivery, school bus. There's a young gentleman who gets picked up each day by a school bus who needs a ramp. How are we going to accommodate that on a frontage road? Also, my access in and out of my property. I'm right at the corner of Rodeo and Colorado. I have heard things about a light at multiple meetings, that a light will be put there. That is going to affect every direction. I don't know how a light works with a frontage road right at a corner. Those issues all need to be addressed, not just for me, but for everybody that has to use Colorado. And as you know, we have more houses being built to the north of Rodeo along Colorado, several hundred of them. That means Colorado will become even busier across both lanes. And yes, that's my time, and thanks for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, any other comments on this minor amendment? This is item 5273.20. Okay. Is that a yes, you're coming forward?
Hi, Nancy Wood, 513 East Beckel Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. And I was just going to quickly kind of speak now, kind of to cover all of them rather than trying to come up individually. Because basically, I see a lot of compromise, a lot of good things that could be really helpful to the issue on Rodeo Road, and some of the things that are planned, I think, are really going in the right direction. But my thing that I wanted to really say is that Casa Grande has a lot of drainage issues, and my main concern over this property is how they're going to lay out all the different projects that they have. So I'm kind of talking about all of them, and especially the Santa Cruz, the North Branch Santa Cruz, and how well they're going to develop that with the natural, hopefully very usable. It sounded like he was going that way, and I appreciate that. And I just want to stress that yes, 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 please do a good job with doing something like that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to call for a resolution number, please, Gloria.
Do we have more comments?
Did you have any more comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I didn't know how we were going to do it for voting right away, but.
Well, we have to vote on each one of these.
Each one, okay. A lot of the concerns seem to me that are going to be addressed at the major site plan because we can't address them at this change. And the developer seems like they're very amenable to working it out, so I appreciate that. And each one of these, as we do them, will initiate that traffic impact analysis so that we know if a light has to go there, if, you know, what's going to happen, but we have to do.
Drainage, water, too.
Yeah, and we do that, and they have to do the drainage. And I remember when we did this project years ago with the retirement community, and the guy stood up and he says, I am the engineer, and we know how to do this, because they will take care of that drainage. They have to. It's the law, for one thing. And also, they don't want their property flood, but it's also going to help the flooding that occurs on the Rodeo Road side, because they'll be taking that water through their property so that they can move it away from Rodeo Road and move it back into the Santa Cruz, so we won't get that problems across the street. But I just want people to know that it means a lot when they come up here and speak, and we do take that into consideration. But this is different because a lot of stuff we have to address is going to be at the site plan, and it'll definitely be important. And we're hearing what you're saying now, and the developers here hearing what you're saying now, so that we can get to that point. And the traffic impact analysis is huge, but that's not going to be triggered until they get to the point of the zoning.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay. Then I'll entertain a resolution, please, Gloria. That was your time, Matt.
I made it.
Resolution number 5273.20, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting a minor amendment to the city of Casa Grande General Plan 2030 as adopted by resolution number 5273 and previously amended by changing the land use designation from neighborhood to community corridor for approximately 30.10 acres of property generally located near the southeast corner of Pueblo Drive and Rodeo Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 5273.20 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Excuse me. Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next on our agenda is the public hearing considering approval of ordinance number 1178.269.2. This is amending the zoning ordinance number 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from planned area development, PAD, to medium density. Can you put, is that, we have that up? Can you identify the project? Put the project up there so people know what we're talking about. Okay, this is the piece off of Pueblo. This is the actual zoning for the medium density single family for rent product. Is that correct, Paul? Or Jacqueline, sorry.
Actually, Mayor, this is the medium density. They're fourplexes they are rentals, but they're not the cottages. These are fourplexes.
Okay.
We can show you the elevation again if you want to see it. There you go. So these
Okay.
are little fourplexes.
So a little nicer than some of the single family for rent stuff.
Yes, it's a little different product.
It's got attached garages.
Yes.
Okay, nice. All right. So I'm going to open the public hearing. This is an opportunity to speak on this project. If there is anyone here who would like to address the council, now is your opportunity to step forward and state your name and your address, please. All right, seeing no one come forward, then I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 1178.269.2. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 in its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from planned area development, PAD, medium density and low density residential, to planned area development, PAD, medium density residential, on property located generally near the southeast corner of Rodeo Road and Pueblo Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of ordinance number 1178.269.2 as presented.
Second.
All right, go
Mr. Mayor,
ahead.
before we vote, because this is a unique situation for us, as Ms. Sarnowski said, this is one of the areas that triggered the supermajority vote, so it will take 6 votes to pass instead of the normal 4.
Thank you, Brett. All right, Gloria, we have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next, move to the next public hearing, and this is to consider approval of ordinance number 1178.269.3. Can you put that one up? That's the corner of Rodeo and Courtson.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the apartment complex.
It's Rodeo and Treckle, southeast corner of Rodeo and Treckle, and it's for commercial for 9 acres and multifamily.
Oh, it's just the commercial piece?
No, it's both commercial and multifamily.
Okay, commercial and apartments. Okay. All right. Again, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to public comment. So if there's anyone here who would like to speak on this, please come forward. Please remember to state your name and your address for us, please, for the records.
Gloria Johnson's story. I reside at 1245 East Laurel Drive, but own the property at 1180 East Rodeo Road in Casa Grande, 85122. May I make a comment before I start my timing? And may I have just a little extra? Because I can do this in 3 minutes, but I'd like to enunciate a few details. It probably would be 3.5 minutes. Does that sound fair?
If you keep it to 3.5 minutes, Gloria, that'd be fine.
I cut and pasted because I can't type. But back to the discussion on extending Rodeo Road. That does my heart good because I don't want us to end up like Interstate 10 and everybody kind of jumps in because we have a traffic situation on Rodeo Road anyway. And even if they build a brand new one, that's even better. That's a speedway. So then we really have a lot of break loose traffic. So ideally, that would be a great capital expenditure and a bond issue that I would support. Okay.
Thank you for your support.
Pardon?
Thank you for your support.
I do support growth. I do have a petition too, and everybody's heard about the famous petition. But I stand opposed to the changes and submitted plan for this development. The developers have worked with us, but right now, the change for the village pad to commercial and high density, I like the medium density. I'm the one that doesn't like the 3-story apartments. Maybe you could do 2 stories to the front, and I'll address that in my final comments to the council. But I have the petition signed by other residents that do not support the changes. And we are single-story family homes on both sides of this development. Our major concerns, of course, are traffic, the visual effect of all these buildings we're not used to, and 3-story apartments, water drainage, and the crowded area potential, the look of crowded development. The traffic infrastructure, traffic dangers and problems that could be created by 2,000 to almost 3,000 people in a 2-block area would have an adverse effect on our adjoining properties and existing residents. Rancho Grande and Desert Valley should not be facing a large rental subdivision of 3-story apartment buildings, 2-story homes, and condos all together. There are already 4 large apartment buildings under construction in the city of Casa Grande, 3 on Treckle already, and 1 at Camino Mercado. All of these new apartments total 874, and that's 4 different locations. Holy cow. You're trying to put 432 apartments, which is half, again, as many as 4 apartment complexes into our little development. And it consists of, like I said, 432 apartments, and there will be 3 apartment complexes within a mile on Treckle Road. And we all know that if you look at Treckle, you have a middle school, and you have a great elementary school on Quartzen, and then on the other end, the high school at Casa Grande Union. So this is, the traffic, there's a lot to be done to get the traffic so that it's not so bad. We have a developing commercial area too. Okay, we live in the desert. This is dear to my heart. There are no blending buildings with the desert colors to preserve the appearance, no desert plan landscaping. The proposed apartments look like barracks, so I'm hoping that the new development will change. The other buildings do not blend to our desert. Think of our existing citizens as noted in the general plan, and trust me, I'm learning about the general plan, and it does allude that we can achieve this growth through multifamily residential and non-residential, but it can be by the increased setbacks, which we do have a nice compromise there, landscape buffers, and building height limits, which is my dearest thought, and the desert landscaping. My last page is asking the council to consider no more than 2-story apartments, no high density. Keep the two stories in the front, maybe to the back. There has to be a compromise. And Larry, thank you for your discussion. He did not address the possibility of doing 2 stories in the front, and that would be a great compromise, because trees don't hide everything. And then the buildings to have a southwest desert design within reason. And I'm willing to work, if this passes, with the developers, and have desert landscaping throughout, protect our water, keep our desert alive. We desert rats have come to love the desert. It took me a while, but I love the desert. And the council does have this ability to help us in being happy with this development by just making a few minor tweaks in writing or in conversation so that we can all work together to develop this area and still be happy as skunks on Rodeo Road. And thank you for the Rodeo Road comment. That brings joy to my heart. Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here to address the council on this item?
Over there.
Any comments from the council? Matt?
I got a couple. Yeah.
Sure.
One thing, again, I enjoyed.
Well, let me close, I'm going to close the public hearing then, and we'll go back to the
Then
council.
I don't have my time limit.
Yeah, I won't put you on a timer.
I can do it.
You can do it. Go ahead,
Here,
Matt.
hold on, Mayor,
Wait.
they're still, okay.
Okay. You just closed it, though, didn't you?
Well, I just closed it, but I'll open it back up. You guys need to kind of stay with the program here.
Yeah, I'm ignorant on a lot of these things. I admit that.
And please state your name and your address, please.
Mike Seacats, 1201 Avila. I live on the corner of Pueblo and Rodeo, one house back. So I'll be looking at that intersection from my backyard, the lights, all that stuff.
Did we determine there's going to be a signal there? I never heard that there was going to be a signal.
The main entrance, I believe.
Because I keep hearing a signal, but I didn't know whether there was any signal in this project.
Mayor, to be subject to the traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
So it's undetermined at this time.
Okay.
I just kind of assumed that from looking at the plan, it must, but maybe not. My concern is like, I've had the same road bike for 42 years. I'm a bicyclist. I don't see any bike things in the city at all, none. I just ride my bike in my little neighborhood, and that's all as far as I go because I'm afraid of getting killed by everybody running so fast down these roads down here. I'm also a racer, so I get that, but there's a place to do the racing. Anyway, I'd like to see the bike lanes, addressed. I'd like to see, where are the parks in this thing that you're building right now? I don't see anything that says parks. Do you?
It's an open space.
Yeah, there's some open space, but
Where's the
go
open
ahead and
space?
state,
The-
go ahead
the
and
gulch,
state
the gulch,
your, state your thoughts. Go
I
ahead.
don't see any open space. I see a gulch where water's gonna go through. I don't see any open space parks. I know where 2,500 people are going to put their kids in the retention part, right on our area. So that's gonna inundate everything. All those people moving over there, there's no parks over there. What do you expect? I don't even know there's enough parking. And when I counted all the parking spots, so that means all the parking that's addressed in this plan means nobody's gonna be parking on the streets inside the development, is that correct? You didn't count that as part of your parking, street parking? They'll all be on the driveway, they'll all be in the garage. I don't, does anybody know that?
For the,
I had like,
The project will meet our parking code requirements. It can be met by on-site and on-street, depending on how they build the streets, but it will meet all of our parking code requirements.
Yes.
We will determine that at the next level, major site plan, if the zoning is approved.
okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into the particulars how many 2x4s it takes to make something or anything like that, but we need to have some parks, we need to have some bike lanes, we need to have some of that. I don't have that. My grandkids come over, they can ride up and down my street a little bit, can't go anywhere. So I'd like to have the visuals and things like that finished, and so I know what I'm looking at. That's like the parking. Everybody's going to be parking on the street, and it's just going to be overcrowded and congested. In other words, I don't even know what a community corridor is. What's a community corridor? What is this? Why do you use that term? What does that mean? Where does it go? From Pert to Pinal, that's a corridor? Is that what that is? Or why do you change it to that? What does that mean?
Means you can have, you want to say, Paul, or residential and commercial?
The community corridor is a specific general plan, land use classification. If you really want to see where it goes, you can look at our general plan online. You can see all of the community corridor designated areas in the whole city, but generally they're along major arterials, and the design purpose of community corridor is to have more mixed land use.
Okay.
Commercial, multifamily, different densities, but more of a mixed land use in a little higher density. But it is in major corridors.
It does seem like a pretty dense plan. Is there a community corridor that I may have driven on that I don't know that I've driven on while I've been around here? I mean, are they designated like that I could drive on one to see what one looks like?
Yes, and you again, just look at the general plan, you can see them all designated, and, but they're all under development today, but yes. If you drive down Treacle Road, you drive down Florence Boulevard, you drive down Pinal, those are all community corridors, and you can start, if you start observing, you'll see all the different mixing of land uses that are occurring in those corridors.
All right.
All right, please wrap up your comments, please.
That's fine. I just wanted to talk about no parks, no bike riding lanes, that kind of stuff. I don't see anything like that being developed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments since I opened the floor back up? All right, seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing. I did want to make one comment. This whole project is 508 units. And the average dwelling number of people per dwelling on an apartment slash single family for rent product is about 2.5. And so if you take the 508 times the 2.5, it's 1,270 possible residents. So it's not 2,000 or 3,000 people, so I'm not sure where that number came from, but I just want to make sure that we clarify that in terms of this particular project. Any other comments from the council?
Mayor, if I can just, I was just going to point out, each of the PADs require 20% open space, and 50% of that has to be usable open space.
So park-type
Parks,
amenities? Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. Did you have something you wanted to say, Matt?
Yeah. The other thing I
Go ahead.
talked, and I want to thank Ms. Story again. You know, when your friends and neighbors come up, it means a lot, and I appreciate it. And I met with her today. It was a very good meeting, I think. I thought it was great. She was very nice, and she had nothing but good to say about the developers as well. But one thing that we always get, what I've been hearing lately, is we need more housing options. And then we have the dust problem, the weeds problem, the drainage problem, and this project addresses a lot of that stuff there, because it's the housing, and right now I live right there, it's a field of weeds, and there's also another 3-story apartment complex just catty corner that's closer to my house, and I haven't really noticed it, to be honest, and the people behind it. Another good thing is this is looking at the front yards, not into somebody's backyard, which I consider a more private space. in the front yard. And they've done a good job of working with them so far, so I know that will continue through the major site plan if this passes. And the one that got me too is the 379 feet. I hadn't really seen that number, didn't realize that until tonight, which is quite a setback. But again, continue meeting, talking, see what we can do to explore this. And I appreciate everyone's just civility and being nice, but as a council member, it means a lot to hear from it, and it's going to affect some change, and it already has started affecting change in this project just with the setbacks and everything. And the other one, again, I say, is the dust and the weeds lately. I've been hearing so much, and I've lived here my whole life, and this has been a vacant piece of land, obviously longer than I've been here, and we've tried to get so many projects on it. We got it zoned for the last one. That one didn't work out because of financing issues on their end. So we've got someone who wants to do something. They own the land, and it's a good use. And we are doing the traffic. Treckle's getting done. The rodeo, I'm in favor of exploring that option of doing the rodeo. We got the McCartney from Pinal all the way to the freeway that's going to be going. We're doing McCartney right now, temporary widening at the intersection there, McCartney and Peart. So we're getting there, and we understand the concerns of this, but we're trying to solve it as we go along. And again, a lot of these things are major site plan, and that's when we're going to hear the specifics, the look of the building. I think the developers heard you tonight of what we would think the building, what you would like the buildings to look like, and the landscaping to look like, and how we could do it, make it look like a good project that we can all be proud of. So I look forward to hearing that in the site plan should this pass on the next zoning change. Thank you.
Bob?
Yes, Mayor, what Matt said, appreciate that. Everything about the major site plan, so many of these concerns, I can't say they will be fully addressed, but we will deal with them when the time comes. All of your comments will stay with us, and we will be concerned about that as we progress. I also wanted to point out that part of our responsibility too is to protect the rights of the owner and developer of this property. They have a right to develop it as long as they follow the rules. And it's our responsibility to monitor that process and make sure they follow the rules and make sure all these things, the traffic study, the drainage study, all of that is followed through with. So please be ensured that we will follow up on that. I do think a lot of these things will be addressed in the major site plan. They may not be completely to people's satisfaction, but we will do everything we can to make sure that this is a positive development for the city and for the neighborhood. I also wanted to make one minor comment. Tierra Point Apartments, those are 3 stories as well. I think they're a lot closer to Rodeo Road than this will be, but when you drive past there, to me anyway, they're attractive, they're pleasing to the eye. They are not looming and imposing on that general area. There is no housing right across the street from it. Someday there will be, but I think that's a good example of how these things. Huh?
There's housing behind it.
And on the side
Behind
of
it,
too.
yeah. But it is an example of how these things can turn out. Sometimes the shock of, oh, they're going to build a 3-story building over there is a bit hard to accept, and I think we understand that. But I think it will eventually turn into a very positive development for the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm not going to berate anybody that what you guys have said. I'm really concerned about the 3-story. And the only reason I will say that I'm going to support this vote at this point is because I know that we have a responsibility to our citizens and to the staff who've worked really hard on this. And so this is the first part of this. And as we go forward, I really want to make sure that our policies and procedures are followed, as Bob said. I think that's really important. And we have an opportunity to go back and work with the developer so that we can do that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, then I am going to call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria. think it's 1178.269.3.
Yes. Ordinance number 1178.269.3. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments, excuse me, amendments by changing the zoning from planned area development, PAD commercial, senior living, and medium-density residential uses to planned area development, PAD commercial, and high-density residential uses on property located generally at the southeast corner of Rodeo Road and Treco Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1178.269.3 as stated.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second, and just as a reminder, this does require a supermajority to pass. So, Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, we'll move to the next and final, the fourth project on this overall plan. This is public hearing considering approval of ordinance number 1178.269.4. The project that's listed up on the screen, the very southeast corner of this project. This is the kind of the more of a I say single family, but for rent product. All right, I'll open the public hearing at this time. If there's anyone here to speak about this project, this is your opportunity. Please come forward. All right, not seeing anyone, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Is there any comments, final comments from council? All right, seeing none, then Gloria, I'll call for an ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 1178.269.4. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from planned area development, PAD office and commercial and low-density residential to planned area development, PAD commercial and medium density on property located generally south of the southeast intersection of Rodeo Road and Treco Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve ordinance number 1178.269.4 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item on our agenda is L2. This is a public hearing considering approval of ordinance number 1178.097.05. This is an amendment to the Mountain View Ranch Planned Area Development. Jacqueline, this is yours.
Last one for me. So again, this is a PAD major amendment to phases 3 and 4 of the Mountain View Ranch PAD. It's approximately 23 acres and is located at the northwest corner of the PAD development along Colorado Street. The existing development consists of phases 1 and 2, which are partially built out, and these minimum lot sizes are 7,000 square feet. Phases 3 and 4 are proposing a minimum lot size of 5,500 square feet, and this increases the number of lots from 184 to 195. And this is the existing zoning of the Mountain View Ranch PAD. So with regards to the PAD review criteria, staff report goes into detail on most of these. I will be covering the zoning conformance to the city's zoning ordinance. So this is subject to the 2021 PAD residential design standards and the 2022 amendment to the PAD residential design standards, which includes the following criteria: limited to 50-foot lot, minimum lots width, 5 and 10 side setbacks, minimum open space of 20%, and minimum lot area of 5,550 square feet. And one of the other requirements is a minimum of 25% of the lots in each of the final plat shall be at least 65,000 square feet. With the exception as is the development is platted in phases, the lot mix can be counted for the entire development. As you can see, counting phases 1 and 2, there's 49% of the lots will be over 6,500 square feet. And at time of the site plat will be subject to all of the PAD residential design standards, including housing product review, open space, and landscaping. With regards to notification, all notices have been met by staff and the applicant. I did receive 2 inquiries via telephone prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission, just asking for additional information, and I sent them the agenda and staff report. I did receive 1 email asking about the drainage in Mountain View Ranch. And at Planning Commission, there were concerns regarding drainage that was discussed with the city park located at the northwest corner of Rodeo in Colorado. And drainage reports will be required and evaluated at the time of platting. Again, that will be furtherly evaluated. So with that, at the May 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for PAD major amendment to Mountain View Ranch to increase the number of lots for DSA 22-00283 with the following conditions of record. Happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Can I see the map again, the original map? Rodeo and Peart. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So that's north of the park, right?
Yeah.
So it's that piece
And
of
this-
development? Okay. And it has
Is there roads?
certificates of assured water?
Yes, this has cause.
Okay.
Is there already roads
And
there?
they, excuse me?
Is there already roads in there?
No.
It kind of looks like it, but I don't know if it's actually roads.
They're kind of roughed in?
Old development.
Yeah, they'll be, I think that was the original alignment.
Okay.
Let me see if I have a backup slide.
I think we're gonna start developing like, look like.
There you go.
Oh, it's not roads.
It's not
just-
roads.
Yeah, it's more, I think it's
It's just
the.
graded.
Great, yeah.
Graded.
Okay.
Okay.
And this would be the last portion of the Mountain View Ranch that does have certificates. And so they are looking at increasing to,
I want to increase the number of lots.
I think it was
And Paul, can we put in, I mean, at some point in time, it doesn't happen tonight, but the design standards like we've done on some of the smaller 5,000 square foot lots where they have an opportunity to have shorter setbacks, but yet make the frontages and each house not look like a...
Already in place, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, they're
design-
increasing the lots from 184 to 195.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Bob?
Yeah, on the certificates of assured water, we saw in previous developments, the developer was increasing the number of lots, and one of the requirements, I believe, is they had to provide evidence of how they were reducing the water use. Will that apply to this one as well?
So that's a requirement for ADWR, but when it comes to the final plat, we'll require that new certificate from ADWR showing the increased number of lots.
They have to apply to ADWR for that.
Okay, all
So
right,
that-
thank you.
That was passed by the legislature about 2 years ago.
Well, I knew we had it on others that were going from PAD to R2.
Right.
And I wondered if
It's
this
a s-
this one's remaining PAD, isn't it?
So, since then, we have updated our PAD residential design standards so that we don't have to rezone to R2.
Okay.
So we can keep it as a planned area development, but do allow that mixture of smaller lots. So that is what the applicant is taking advantage of.
They'd have rezoned to R2.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So they're not quite going all that far.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Jacqueline. All right, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor on item ordinance number 1178.269.4 on the amendment changes for the,
I believe that was the last.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. If I take my glasses off, I might be able to see. This is for the major amendment to Mountain View Ranch planned area development. Sorry, 1178.097.05. These are for distance, not reading. All right, I've opened the floor. Is there anybody here to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll ask for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 1178.097.05, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a major amendment to Mountain View Ranch planned area development adopted for property generally located at the northwest corner of Rodeo Road and Peart Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I would like to move for approval of ordinance number 1178.097.05 as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavender.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is item L3. This is a public hearing considering the approval of resolution number 5-73.21. This is amendment to the City of Casa Grande's general plan. Mr. Horn, are you on this one?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this request...
Gagliardi, sorry, I called you Mr. Horn.
I kind of let that slide.
I'm going, wait, that's not Joe.
He just ignored you.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure in my mind if that was a compliment or...
I just gave you a promotion. How about that?
Thank you. This request in front of you this evening is for a major general plan amendment known as Nexus. And just a brief overview of our major general plan amendment process is that's allowed to occur twice a year. This was the only submittal for the first half of 2023. There may be submittals for the second half of 2023, but as far as the major general plan process goes, is it takes approximately 6 months due to stakeholder notification and whatnot. And per ARS requirements, there's 2 planning commission meetings on major general plan amendments and then a city council meeting. And that's where we're at this evening. Planning commission has heard this request twice, and in front of you this evening is city council's consideration of this general plan amendment. The request involves 162.5 acres of a 318-acre parcel located at the northeast corner of Cottonwood and Hennis. The request is to change the west portion of that parcel, that's about 162.5 acres, from the neighborhoods general plan category to the commerce and business general plan category. Now, as you see on the map here, it's just an extension of existing commerce and business that lies to the east, and there's also existing commerce and business designated property that lies to the south. And then, of course, to the north And west of the site is neighborhoods with community corridor on the other side of Cottonwood Lane. A little bit of overview of what the existing land use designation means, neighborhoods, is it basically provides exactly as the name entails. The neighborhoods general plan category accommodates primarily neighborhoods, low-density residential development. It does allow for limited neighborhood scale commercial office and some other uses that blend in with a residential neighborhood. And there's a list of appropriate base zoning categories in the neighborhoods category, which includes R1, R2, which are low density to medium density residential zone districts. It also allows some light commercial zonings. If this property were to remain in neighborhoods and were to be proposed to develop as a neighborhoods general plan land use category, it has an 87 acre size problem. And the reason why I say that is when you look at the development standards that are in place for neighborhood designated properties, single commercial sites of up to 30 acres shall be designed at an appropriate neighborhood scale. Well, the site size is limited to 30 acres. And then when you look at residential specific development standards, the first criteria under that is single-family developments with homes on individual lots shall have a maximum gross density of 4.5 dwelling units per acre. Well, that's off the table because this property doesn't have certificates of assured water supply. So it can't feasibly develop into individual lots to accommodate a low-density single-family neighborhood. Then the next category is medium-density residential developments are allowed on single sites with 25 acres or less, and it can have a maximum gross density of 12 dwelling units per acre. You could also have what's considered high-density development on single sites of up to 20 acres for a maximum gross density of 24 acres. So that's what creates the 87 acre problem, because on the 162 acres that's currently designated as neighborhoods, if you were to develop that with the maximum of 30 acres of commercial and then the maximum total of 45 acres for medium density and high density multifamily, you end up with 87 acres left over without the ability for any sort of development to be proposed on there. So it does lend itself to a general plan designation to a category that's not as reliant on certificates of assured water supply, uses that are more large format, such as commercial uses or multifamily development, and also uses that are compatible with the surrounding general plan designation, such as the existing commerce and business that lies to the east. Now, the commerce and business category has a much broader list of appropriate land uses. It does include multifamily residential, and actually it's at a density of up to 45 dwelling units per acre. It does allow commercial, and as you see down the list of wide variety of different uses, including a business park, light manufacturing, and warehousing and distribution. And then its appropriate base zone categories include multifamily residential zoning as well as business zoning, but it does also accommodate I-1, which is our garden and light industrial zone, and planned area developments. Now, when looking at the general development standards for commerce and business, it does indicate that development should be designed to accommodate regional traffic, particularly retail, commercial, office, and light industrial developments. The reason why this site is selected particularly to go from neighborhoods to commerce and business, in addition to the other issues that I was sharing about the challenges if it were to develop in neighborhoods, is it's at the corner of two principal arterial designated roads. You wouldn't know it right now, but both Cottonwood and Hennis are designed ultimately to be 6 lanes in that area. It's not currently developed at 6 lanes because it's reliant upon development of abutting properties, but that is a good location to separate land use designations. And that would continue to occur with neighborhoods existing on the other side of Hennis, and there being a different land use designation directly south on Cottonwood. Light industrial and office uses should be highly encouraged along freeway corridors. Well, this is part of a larger parcel which comes close to abutting I-10, and it also indicates, the last bullet point is non-residential developments are subject to a maximum floor area ratio of 0.35. And that basically, if you were to do a 1-story development, you'd be limited to 35% coverage on that lot. So even though the commerce and business category does accommodate a mixture of commercially and light industrial designated uses, it still would be taking into consideration issues such as the floor area ratio and being designed in such a way where they can feature architectural design concepts to help promote commercial development while complementing surrounding other types of developments. I should also note that the general plan amendment discussion this evening does not involve or affect a change in zoning. General plan amendments by themselves never do. The current zoning of the subject site is urban ranch, and a general plan amendment would not change that zoning. The property could still develop as urban ranch. The major impact would be, however, is if someone were to propose a change of zoning, they would only be limited to, or they would be limited to those zone districts supported by the commerce and business land use designation. They would no longer be able to propose a zone district that is supported by the neighborhood's land use designation. There is a zoning request that is pending future city council consideration, known as Nexus, and it is a proposed planned area development. And this is a conceptual site plan that was provided as part of the proposed zoning. I do want to advise that zoning isn't being contemplated this evening, but this helps provide some context as to one of the drivers behind the request of the amendment of the general plan. The proposed Nexus PAD accommodates a business park type use, also with warehousing and distribution and potential R&D development. When looking at the general plan amendment determination criteria, I want to go over the 4 highlighted items. The first is to describe in detail how each of the general plan guiding principles are achieved with the proposed general plan amendment. Now, within that first criteria, there's actually 11 sub-criteria that are all the general plan guiding principles, and I just want to talk about the 2. Letter B says community growth should be driven by industrial, corporate office, professional services, research and development, and other similar developments which offer the opportunity for higher paying jobs. And the other highlighted item here under the guiding principles is to support and strengthen Casa Grande's position as the industrial and commercial center of Pinal County. So this general plan amendment, if it were to be approved, would definitely speak to those 2 guiding principles. The other criteria that I want to talk about is describe how the proposed amendment enhances or has no net impact on mobility and traffic congestion. Now, this certainly is one of the largest concerns in terms of our neighborhood notification and the responses that we have received as a result of the neighborhood notification. And within the general plan submittal, it does speak about what would need to happen in order for this property to fully develop as intended. Now, in general, the commerce and business land use category by itself, even without any type of traffic analysis, would likely mean you're going to have sites that are more intense than if it were left as a neighborhood's general plan designation, just by the mere fact of what types of uses are supported. I mean, you could have multifamily up to 45 dwelling units per acre, you can have light industrial. So there's going to be a different dynamic of traffic mixture in commerce and business designated property. And it acknowledges that there does need to be a number of roadway improvements to serve that site. One of the things that it mentions is the extension of Hennis Road, which is planned along the west side of the site, and also the completion of Courtson to the planned Courtson TI with I-10. Now, what this graphic shows is all of the yellow streets are planned principal arterial roads that are ultimately going to be 140 feet wide, 6 lanes, and this definitely shows kind of a snapshot of general planned circulation on each side of I-10, which hasn't been developed to fruition yet, but as other developments occur, as there's different capital expenditures, there will be a well-integrated network of principal arterial roads, not only serving this site, but other sites east and west of I-10 that are already designated as commerce and business, or other types of land use categories that are more intense. The white streets, such as O'Neill and Camino Mercado, etc., are collector roads. And again, not all of these have been developed, but that also serves as additional ways for traffic to circulate. This is a picture of a residential neighborhood on the left in Gilbert, along Gilbert Road, and it may be Chandler, I apologize. I'm not quite sure where the jurisdictional boundaries are, but on the left you have a single-family residential neighborhood on the east side of Gilbert Road, and on the west side of Gilbert Road you have a business park. And this just serves as an example of how a 6-lane facility serves as a good division line between two different uses. And that can be achieved not only by just the distance that's created, but also the landscape opportunities with the center median and then the landscape buffers that you have paralleling the developments on each side of the street. The other thing that I should mention about principal arterial roads is that they are designed to be high-capacity roadways to be able to accommodate large amounts of regional traffic. And again, it's hard to visualize right now because a lot of our principal arterial roads haven't been built out, but they are designed to carry that capacity once they have been built out. The other criteria I want to discuss is describe in detail how any of the general plan goals or action steps are achieved by the proposed amendment. There's one goal that particularly speaks to that, and that's to develop economically competitive regional centers of commercial activity. And the action steps to achieve that goal is to promote a wider range of uses than traditional commercial areas, including blending commercial and industrial sites to prepare for changes in demand for retail and other commercial uses. And another action step is to develop promotional strategies to market Casa Grande as a regional center of commercial activity in Pinal County. The last criteria I want to talk about is describe how the proposed amendment impacts the general plan land use pattern. So I did a brief overview on an earlier slide of the different general plan categories that surround the subject property, but directly to the north is a site in the neighborhoods category that was recently in front of council, and it's the Vista Ranch Planned Area Development Zone. It is largely in neighborhoods, although if you notice there is a corner near the planned TI of Courtson I-10 that's in commerce and business. And there will be compatibility measures looked at the time of zoning to ensure there is good use-to-use compatibility between the Vista Ranch PAD and this development. Vista Ranch, of course, is primarily single-family residential. However, there's over 1,000 units of multifamily planned, as well as a commercial site that I think is just below 30 acres. Immediately to the west, on the other side of Hennis, is property that is owned by the state, so it's not likely to develop in the immediate future. However, there's Vista Grande High School on the property. That site could ultimately, the rest of the site could ultimately be used to accommodate more educational institutions. It is possible in the future that the state may lease or sell some of its properties, but this site highlighted also does not have certificates of assured water supply. And so it would also be limited to what type of development it can have. Directly to the south of the site, on the other side of Cottonwood Lane, is the Palm Creek community, and it's considered medium-density residential, but it's within the community corridor category, which accommodates medium-density residential development, such as manufactured homes. In terms of the acreages and percentages of how the land use change would impact the general plan categories, is neighborhoods would be reduced by 162.5 acres, while commerce and business would be increased by that much. But if you look at the total acreage for neighborhoods versus commerce and business as a result of the general plan amendment, you still have almost 3 times as much neighborhoods land use designated property as you do commerce and business. And I do want to describe the next steps and where we're at in the overall process. So right now, Planning Commission is only being asked to consider the general plan amendment, and we have minimal information at the general plan stage. Now, there's also a pending zone change, and with that, there was a master circulation study provided, as well as a list of proposed uses and design standards and a conceptual site plan. However, that too does not provide a complete picture. Neither the general plan nor the PAD fully entitles the property with land uses. It's not until the major site plan stage, which we have received no major site plans for this site, where we really have a good insight in terms and an ability to determine and to direct placement of buildings to minimize impact. We would have more more specified drainage reports and plans, utility reports and plans. But what's most important to point out is that it's not really until the time of the major site plan submittals that we would get a traffic impact analysis. The master circulation study that was provided with the zoning does provide a big picture in terms of what all would need to be improved and what types of roadways are necessary to accommodate the development at full build-out. But it's not until we receive specific traffic impact analyses with the individual major site plans where we can do a closer look at if the specific major site plans can be developed while not negatively affecting our level of service on the roadways. And then, of course, the future steps, should all of these be approved, is for the applicant to move on to the administrative portions of the process, which would include site development permitting and public improvement permitting, which would involve improvement of roadways and so forth. This did follow notification process as required by the ARS statutes and city code. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, there were 2 planning commission meetings. On the April 27th meeting, there were 2 comments received from this notification ahead of time. And then at the hearing itself, there was a resident of Palm Creek who spoke, who was in opposition to the general plan amendment and had some concerns about compatibility, and has provided follow-up correspondence to the planning department and council members. And then since that meeting, there's a typo, since April 27th, staff has received additional responses from residents within Palm Creek opposed to the general plan amendment. When the second hearing was held on May 4th, there were 5 Palm Creek residents who spoke, and there was an additional citizen who lived elsewhere who addressed Planning Commission with concerns. And then after that meeting on June 6th, the applicant for this general plan amendment did hold a virtual meeting with the residents and management of Palm Creek. Well over 100 people attended, and it was beneficial in that there was a more specific overview provided to the residents and some questions and answers, and there was some discussion officiated in that manner. And as a result of that virtual meeting, staff did receive a few additional inquiries and questions. But at its May 4th meeting, Planning Commission did move to forward at a vote of 5-2, a recommendation to council to approve this major general plan amendment. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gagliardi. Council members, questions for, yes, go ahead.
James, can you go back to the traffic slide that you had with the improvements that need to be done? Yes, a couple more. Yeah. So the Hennis, the 6 lanes, Cottonwood, the 6 lanes, obviously the developer wouldn't be responsible for all of that, correct?
At least half-street improvements.
So it ultimately depends, Councilmember Lavender. Based on a traffic impact analysis, it's going to show what would have to be improved in order for the proposed development to function. Now, typically, we do just see improvements immediately abutting the developing property. But a good example is like with Phoenix Smart. Its traffic impact analysis had indicated that improvements well beyond the site had to occur in order for Phoenix Smart to be accommodated. So it's possible that as a result of the TIA, they would have to do a number of off-site improvements. And either they could do that directly, they could go to that expense and make those. They could scale down their proposed site plan and reduce the number of proposed trips, or they could wait for developing certain aspects of the site until the improvements have been made by others. For example, they don't have to pay to put in the courts and TI. That's ultimately going to be put in, but that's going to be a huge benefit for this project. And it may be that TI that's necessary for some of the development to ultimately function. So they really can't pursue development until there are some other improvements made on a grander scale.
In reading a lot of the emails, one of the concerns that was very evident was the concern about truck traffic. And it just goes back to a reminder of the Walmart distribution center when they were in front of the commission's, oh no, we're not going to drive through town, we're going to drive around town, yet they drive through town. And I could understand the concerns of residents that all of these improvements are years away, that we're just going to create all these truck issues around Hennis Road and Cottonwood and that. So the traffic and impact study would cover all of that?
At the time of the major site plan is really the best time that we would have the clearest picture on what would be tolerated and what wouldn't in terms of their proposed development.
Okay.
And this is only a plan amendment, correct? General plan amendment.
It's not even that right now. We're looking at the general plan amendment.
Right, that's what I meant,
Yeah.
general plan amendment, okay. I do have a question. In all of the materials that you had, did the developer call this project a truck distribution center?
The applicant's here, so he could speak to that. I've always known it as a business
It's
slash
light
light
industrial,
industrial
right?
park. But they do disclose on the proposed conceptual plan distribution centers.
But it wasn't specifically called a truck distribution center.
I don't believe so, but the applicant can clarify.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for all the emails too from I think we all got them.
We did.
Yeah, but, so Cottonwood Lane, north of the Palm Creek Resort, that's built out, right? That's, because it's
Not totally.
It's 4 lanes, there's
Yeah.
2.
I'll go to the
2
last
lanes on each
slide.
side with a median, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because I saw that picture.
Right, I'll take you to that picture. It's not fully built out on either side.
Right
So,
there. But that's fully built out right there.
on the
That portion.
left is to the south. Actually, Cottonwood would ultimately be, there would be 3 lanes going eastbound, which was on the south side of the road. And it doesn't, it's kind of hard to visualize, but there's a canal there between the
Yeah.
sidewalk and the landscaping.
Where all the weeds are.
So that could be decked and.
Oh, and then that would be another travel lane.
Correct.
Oh, and
Yeah.
then there would be another 2 lanes on, so it'd be 3 lanes on each side of the road.
Correct. And then on to the right, which would be the north side of the road, the westbound traffic, there are portions that are 2 lanes there, but then it goes down to a single lane. It would ultimately be widened to be a total of 3
Okay.
3 through lanes.
But on the Palm Creek side, I mean, the road's not completed, but that's obviously
Correct.
as wide as it's gonna be wider on the other side.
Yeah, that probably in the most recent of future, that is true.
And is this like a lot, I've seen a lot of these developments going up along the I-10. You know, there's some right by Chandler Boulevard there, and then there's a bunch on the west side, and they're just a big, kind of what you showed in that other picture. That's kind of what they're, and the hard part here is they propose the zoning, but we're not actually considering the
Right.
zoning, kind of like the case that we just heard. The other thing would be, to Mr. Lavender's concern, is the truck traffic. I mean, that's a huge issue because it's one of my, I drive on that side of town all the time. Cottonwood's terrible, Thornton, we widened it, thank you, but, you know, there's still quite a bit of traffic that goes along that, and it's really congested on Pinal. So I see the concerns of the residents here. But we've got to consider that Hennis, right, and Cottonwood are gonna be major arterials, correct terminology? So Hennis would look the same as this, will look out, ultimate build out, 3 lanes on each side of a median?
Correct. The design for a principal arterial would be 3 through lanes in each direction, and then a center median.
turn, yeah, center median or turn.
And Hennis's plan is to go all the way up past McCartney, right?
Correct.
Some point in time?
I actually have,
Oh, there's more.
And then all the way down to
Yeah.
Jimmy Kerr? And
So-
actually has an off-ramp on I-8.
there is, the
Ultimately.
graphic here shows its
There we
ultimate
go.
alignment.
Yeah, there you go.
It goes from Val Vista to a future interchange with I-8. And then there's some future planned interchanges that haven't occurred yet, identified with the white circles, Val Vista, Quartzen, and then one in Selma.
Selma.
So Hennis would be technically designed to go down to the 8 or. yeah.
Correct. There should be an off-ramp there, technically.
And not to make you flip around, but to make you flip around, you had the one slide with the percentages of zoning.
Sure, I know where you're talking about.
There we go. Okay. So this isn't that specific area, this is our entire planning area.
Right, just reflecting what the addition of 162 acres.
Not
into
much
the
of a
commerce
change
zone.
overall, but.
Yeah,
It's too bad it wasn't just on the north side of that other piece, just to go along the freeway
Right.
there,
Exactly.
which would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I know I got several letters too, and there was some misfacts in the letters. Several of them dealt with I-10 widening, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that the funding for I-10 and the I-10 widening is complete. The state has enough money to start construction on I-10 widening between Casa Grande and Chandler. So that will begin this fall. So you will see construction beginning this year. So I don't know where those facts came from, but they were not accurate. And there were also a couple other facts in there that weren't accurate as well. So I just want to make sure we dispel any misinformation and make sure that we have the right information out there. And I know that you guys know this. And if anybody has some questions from, from the development and they want to get the facts, please check with our staff or call me. I'd be happy to talk to them about it. But just want to make sure, that we paint the proper picture. There is also a courts and traffic interchange at I-10 and I-8 that we do have we've got a grant out for, and we should know by the 28th of this month whether we receive that grant. And if we do, it is a shovel-ready project, so it will move forward quickly. And that will make a huge difference on this traffic flow in terms of this whole project and this whole area. And honestly, I'm not sure this area will develop unless we get the courts and TI completed. So, I mean, ultimately, in the end, it's really going to be up to that traffic interchange to happen for this really to, I believe, move forward. So, questions?
When did you say that was?
28th of this month.
Of this month.
Yep.
Question?
Yes.
So James, I know, excuse me, losing my voice. I know today, I understand, just the amendment to the general plan. Why couldn't we put them together with the zoning case? Is it common for us to separate them out like that? I understand why we, the general plan twice a year, the major amendments, but, and the reason I ask is because I know we met with the developer a long time ago. I guess I thought I would have a little bit more information on, some of the zoning stuff. And my concern at this point is the arterial roads. I mean, it just, and I appreciate all the comments and letters and emails from everyone, but realistically, my concern is that those roads and how it's going to affect the community and the traffic we currently have. And so, because I just realistically don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, the courts and thing, I mean, I would love to table it to see where we are with the courts and interchange, because that's critical. And in the notes, I saw that you guys.
Well, even
made
the
comment.
Conwood
You made the
overpass,
comment.
it's not 6 lanes, it's barely 2.
Right, no, I know, I'm talking courts
So there's a lot of work to be done in order for this project
And it's not
to move
the
forward.
zoning part doesn't concern me as much, it's just the effect on all the roads and the
Right.
impact, and it just.
Yeah, no question about that.
So I guess my question is the whole general plan, but the zoning, could we have put them together? If you can answer my question on that.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons, it's a good question. We kind of see 50-50. Sometimes there's general plan amendments that come forward with the zoning, and other times the applicant's not ready to submit the zoning. And a good example is last year, there was property that went from neighborhoods to commerce and business at the northeast corner of Florence and Hacienda. And as I look at the graphic, I see that I must have moved the map, because you see the little rectangle there, but it's misplaced. But it's supposed to lie east of Hacienda there in the blue. But that's a good example where that came forward with a general plan amendment to take that out of neighborhoods for much the same reasons. It really couldn't feasibly develop in neighborhoods because there's no certificates of assured water supply. It's along principal arterial road, Florence and Hacienda. But in that case, they did not have zoning. And they just want to take the process slow. They want to designate the property as commerce and business in the general plan, and then that would enable them to market it to potential purchasers who then would pursue, or that would prompt them to pursue a specific zoning and major site plans. It does help to have zoning be paired with the general plan, because then you get a picture of what exactly could be built in that area. But just like with the remainder of the commerce and business property that you see between I-10 and this proposed site, that was a product of earlier mapping and earlier city-determined properties through our every 10-year general plan amendment process. And though that property isn't associated with the plan, it's really just identifying what areas are the most appropriate for what land use categories based on their general locations.
And if I might add a little bit to what James said, is that in this case, your PAD zoning for this site is in fact waiting in the wings. It's been processed, had hearings before a planning commission, and in fact was originally scheduled to be heard by council in conjunction with this general plan amendment. The applicant, based on hearing some of the concerns expressed, I think specifically with the traffic impact and the infrastructure, has asked to take a little more time to evaluate those issues before they have their council hearing. But we do believe they're going to ask for it to come back before you in like October, November timeframe, if this general plan amendment is in fact approved. But we could marry those back together. There is some concern under state law that your public hearings on these general plan amendments have to be held in the same calendar year, I think it is the same calendar year within 12 months. Brad?
The new statute just requires it within 12 months of the application date. It used to be the same calendar year.
Right, so within 12 months. So, but we can certainly meet that criteria. And also because we're having general plan reviews twice a year now, we were concerned that, we kind of complete this general plan review before we start our next one, so we don't get the next cycle ahead of this one. But we don't have any general plan applications in for our next cycle of amendments, so that may not even be a concern. So bottom line, I think procedurally, there's really not a concern with putting the general plan and the PAD zoning back on the same hearing if that's what council really wanted to do.
Matt?
So we could have the hearing tonight and still be legal for putting those together?
I think you procedurally could do that.
Brett says yes.
I guess I should have looked that way. Sorry, Brett.
And the only reason I like that idea is because there's so much that's going to go into the zoning piece that if we approve it tonight, and if it doesn't go through all the zoning, then we have that designation, which do we really need to have that right now? So I'm more comfortable putting them together and.
Well, can we listen or
Yeah,
hear
for
from
sure.
the developer? Are they here? Oh, there you are.
Right in front.
Give us your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Jack Gilmore.
Hey, Jack.
Gilmore Planning and Landscape Architecture. Yeah, there's a couple items. Jim always does a very good presentation, very thorough, but there's a couple of points I guess I want to reinforce. And that's going to be location and circulation. The location was picked obviously because of the I-10 exposure. I-10 carries the highest volume of traffic in state Arizona. Site selectors looking for employment opportunities or employment locations will drive by I-10, realize this is a great location on a high-tech corridor between Phoenix and Tucson, close to Interstate 8, and the first thing they're going to want to know is how do we get here? Florence Boulevard is available, but it's congested, and we are the first to acknowledge, and so is INDICAP, my client, that the access to this property is going to be critically reliant on this interchange with I-10 and Courtson. That's accepted. However, as Jim has explained very well, this property is going to be reliant on the extension of both Hennis and Cotton Lane as 6-lane arterials. We're also going to be reliant on Courtson to be improved, and the extension of Hennis north of our property to Courtson and Courtson itself are really out of our control. That's going to be based on negotiations, discussions with Mr. Branch. And as Jim said, that project's been approved, and we can give our moral support to get the infrastructure going, but the schedule for that is really going to be dependent on Vista Ranch and maybe the city council participating in this somehow to fund some of those improvements. But until we get our arms around I'll say the exact schedule of when that might happen, that's why I think we've requested the extension of the zoning to a later date. The neighborhood notification, that was a concern expressed by P&Z. And when we started this engagement, gosh, last fall, one of the first things I did was start communication. Having been doing this for a number of decades, I'll be the first to admit that communication with our neighbors and getting them on board to understand what is being proposed is a critical step in the process, not just for the zoning itself, but it's just the way I do business. So we did reach out to Palm Creek last fall and said, we've got this project started. We'd like to have some discussion with Palm Creek on what we intend to do. That, for whatever reason, that took a number of months to get communication established with some communities. We were negotiating with, or trying to make contact with the local general manager and with their office out of state. But like I said, for whatever reason, it took until, gosh, early April, until we finally were able to make that communication and expressed to them the importance of why I felt Palm Creek needed to be aware of what was going on. So when we got through our second P&Z hearing, commissioners made it clear that they wanted to know if there's better communication going on with Palm Creek. I don't think they understood that we made the original overture when we first started the engagement, and I think that influenced the vote. But we did get 5-2 in favor, and I think had they understood that the importance of the communication that we tried to do, I think hopefully we've gotten maybe a higher vote count. Subsequent to that meeting, as Jim pointed out, we did have a webinar that was set up by Sun Communities. And they noticed all their residents. It went onto their national website. Before that hearing occurred, Dennis Jordan, the general manager, issued to me a series of questions and said, we're getting these kind of questions from all of our residents. Can you give us a response? And they will share it. We put together a 3-page response to all those questions involving not only land use, but it was involving how the property is going to be managed, property management considerations, solid waste, the type of chemicals that might be stored in these buildings, and of course the access and circulation. So we did what we could, and we went through the webinar itself, and we didn't have the ability to communicate with the residents directly, but those residents were able to listen in on the webinar. In subsequent discussions with some communities, I've not really received to date any additional questions or concerns expressed by any of the Palm Creek residents. As a matter of fact, to this date, I've yet to receive any calls or emails or letters from any resident in Palm Creek. And I know they're communicating with staff and council. I'm kind of feeling left out of the loop here. But we've expressed to Dennis and some communities that if the residents want to have another meeting, we're prepared to do that. We want them comfortable with what we intend to do with the property. Like I say, a lot of the questions that came up were dealing with site development issues, not the general plan land use. I don't think that was a concern. When we talked to Vista Ranch on the north side, they're on board with the general plan land use change. Some of the questions they had were dealing with site development standards, which we are addressing, and that'll be part of our PAD zoning. So I guess I want to make it clear to the council that we are prepared to address whatever concerns Palm Creek has, and we're prepared to meet again. But we are sensitive to that, and like I say, that's how I do all my zoning cases. I don't have a whole lot more to add to Jim's presentation. Like I say, we're not doing the zoning tonight, just the general plan amendment. This property does not have an assured water supply, so this commerce and business seems to be in a very appropriate land use, regardless of the zoning. I think long-term, This provides opportunities for employment, jobs, and a great tax base for the city of Casa Grande. Quick overview, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you guys might have.
Questions for Jack?
I don't have questions for Jack, but I do have some comments before we go into.
Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
If we need you, we'll call you. Go ahead, Donna.
Okay, I have several things, so I'm going to try to keep it short because I know we've been here a while. First of all, I feel sorry that Jack was not communicated with because I think he's a big part of the project. I understand that Sun Communities was the contact because they own the property.
Right.
Shame on them for not including the residents that live in Palm Creek first. To me, that's unprofessional. I understand about 130 people were on the virtual call, and I know that when you do a call like that, it would be very hard to have everybody talking and asking questions. So, you know, the dialogue that happened, I think that was the best way that they could handle it. I know that I have gotten no less than 15 correspondence in the last couple of weeks. I have talked to Ms. Bobby Siebel before on this, and I appreciate her input. Staff, I know that you've done comprehensive attention to this. I have major concerns because of the site plan, the roadway. I went out there this weekend and did some due diligence. We're talking about things that are going to happen. The Hennis. We're talking, you know, the I-10, the completion of courts, and we're talking about all those things that are going to happen, and we want them to happen. I just think we're pushing this, and I think that, you know, it's the cart before the horse here. And I agree with Lisa, I feel like we need to step back, and I know that we can meet twice a year for the general plan, and I want to do it right. And I'm not saying that this facility might not be the right thing for this area, but what I am saying is, I don't care what you call it, it looks like a distribution center. And I remember what happened with the Walmart distribution center. And I think that we need to step back, and I think that we need to take a hard look at it and do it right. Not only for us and the way that our city looks, but for the residents that have taken the time to correspond with us. And that's a lot of people. And that alone, I think that, you know, the roadway, I drive that every single day to and from Florence. And I know what it's like now. And if all those roadways were done, all the intersections were done, I would feel better about that. But it's not. And if we had a timeline, maybe. But I just think we need to take a step back and be responsible on this.
I think she said it very well.
What Donna said.
Yeah, but I also remind you that our roads don't get built until development happens, and that's also a fact in terms of our systems and our infrastructure.
I respectfully agree with you on that, but I think on this case, we need to be a little bit slower and be a little bit more responsible.
I haven't opened the public hearing yet, but you mean for who?
The developer raised this.
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. I think question about traffic is near and dear to all of our hearts. It's become very apparent that without the interchange and the extension of Hennis to Courtson and Courtson to the interchange, this project's not going to start. Staff's made it very clear that in order for this project to begin, we have to submit traffic impact analyses for these developments that will be reflected in the site plan approval. Site plan approval will include what's being proposed not only for this interchange and for these arterials, but it's the timing. So even though these are 6 lanes in each direction, we can't extend Hennis to Courtson or Courtson to the interchange without Vista Ranch participating. So this project's not going to evolve for a number of years. As you know, just the interchange design to complete is probably a year, then another year in construction, and we're still dealing with timing on water and sewer. We have a sewer or a water solution, and we're working with Public Works right now on sewer. The city is authorized some capital improvement projects for sewer extension along Courtson. All these things are playing into our timing, but you're right, we're not going to be able to commit to a schedule until we have some certainty on some of these items that are right now out of our control. And when we have a better understanding of the timing of those things, then I think that's going to be able to trigger, finalizing our traffic impact analyses and doing the site plan approval process. But that is potentially years away. So I understand. The arterials are designed to carry truck traffic. The site plan that we'd submitted on the concept, we're trying to internalize the truck traffic, not take them out to Cottonwood Lane. And we can't rely on Camino Mercado to solve the problem for Nexus. We know that there is congestion already at Florence TI, and Camino Mercado going south will be at capacity by then, by the time we hit the signal there at Florence Boulevard. So it's been well documented that without this interchange and the extension of those arterials, we're going to have a difficult time getting this thing started. But we need, it's a procedural step. We need this major general plan amendment to start the land use approval so that we can go into the next phase of this. So I'm sensitive to that, believe me.
Well noted.
Thank you.
And I think we're worrying about this overall traffic flow before we even get there. And so this is just a general plan amendment. It's not a zoning change. It's not approving a site or PAD site plan. It is a land use plan change.
Understood.
So, and unless some of these other things happen, that it doesn't matter. I mean, we could change it back if, in fact, this project never happens. So, I mean, what is procedurally, any advice here?
Public hearing.
I can do the public hearing, but
Right.
which we have to
Ultimately,
do.
it's up to the mayor and council, but we did advertise the public hearing tonight, and to ensure that we're meeting the statute, I'd recommend that you certainly hold that public hearing
Sure.
tonight. After that, it's up to council's preference whether to consider it tonight, whether to table it. It's always difficult on the tabling because you'd be trying to move it to whenever the Nexus zoning is there, but that may not happen. Someone else could come in and try to do it, but you could table it until then. My concern to Director Tice's thing is that we don't necessarily want our major general plan amendments to start overlapping, right? So as you do that. But ultimately, it's up to council. You could certainly, table the matter. You could also vote. If you do vote tonight, this is another one of our super majorities, but in this case, it will take 5 votes to approve a major general plan if you do vote tonight. But I would hold the public hearing for those people who came here tonight and to ensure that we meet the statute.
All right, thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing for this particular subject. This is on resolution number 5273.21. This is on the general plan amendment for the subject on the screen. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this subject? Please state your name and your address for us, please, for the records. And remember, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Jackson. I live at Palm Creek at 1110 North Hennis. I don't want to speak on this, but I will. This is my 3rd time I've spoke on this situation. I want to let you and the public know that this is huge. It might not feel so huge to other folks or to you folks, with no disrespect, but imagine this going by your home. Cottonwood and Hennis, with this plan, are going to be surrounding neighborhoods, plain and simple. You can't get away from that. I don't think all the information, every time I go to one of these meetings, I learn more. I learn more, and I know there's going to be a lot of trucks on the road. There's the developer, Jack can speak to that. How many bays there are at this facility. And thank you, Mayor, for explaining the I-10. That's the first I've heard of that. But it's very bothersome, and it is huge. And when the developer develops the building that he's speaking about, there's going to be trucks, and they're going to be all over, and all of your, and I thank you for the council members that responded to my letter. I appreciate that. There will be trucks that will go all over, like the Walmart comment. The only way to get away from that, and I was a manager for the trucking industry for tractor trailers. They pile up fast. And there's no two ways about it. I'm trying to just tell you the truth, my professional opinion, unless you do a truck route and on and off. And I completely understand the developer wants to be right next to the I-10. I would just personally say that those are neighborhoods. They might not look up there on the screen like neighborhoods. People live in those neighborhoods. Families live in those neighborhoods. Can you even imagine trucks coming and going, cars coming and going, bottlenecks on your city streets? It is massive what they're proposing here. I guess that's all I have to say. I would ask that you table this, get more information. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of pages. There's like probably 2 pages. I'm a layman. I don't sit around and read proposals. I'm not an attorney, but I can tell you there's a lot more information to know before you move forward, please. Okay? Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's a public hearing, so please state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Karen Hoffman Snyder. My address is 13634 South 33rd Street, Phoenix, Arizona. I am the granddaughter of Herman and Ruby Dewan, who were the original owners of this property. I serve as one of the general partners, along with my Uncle Fred, for the property that is both Nexus and the Blanca property, which is just east of the 10, north of Florence Boulevard, and south of Cottonwood Lane. We have had this property in our family and farmed it for 80 years. We were here before air conditioning. I grew up in Yuma County as a farming family as well, so this is part of our blood. We have been looking for a while to try to find a way to develop this, to take it out of farming, which is probably not the best tax basis anyway for you all, but is what we have done for 80 years, and find a good partner. We have partnered in the past with an amusement park who seemed to get approval from the city council a few years back, which would have provided quite a bit of additional traffic onto the property. And we have actually talked to Palm Creek for expansion. They have proposed to purchase the property in the past as well, but they were just not a very good partner. We have found a good partner in IndyCap. They will purchase our entire property, which is mandatory for our family. The south parcel and the north parcel, south of Cottonwood and north, must be sold concurrently, which will help your roadway systems as well, because since it is currently in agriculture and will remain in agriculture as long as it's in our family partnership, we would not have the funds to do this infrastructure you discussed of widening Cottonwood Lane or putting in Camino Mercado. That is going to have to come from a developer. It won't be able to come from us. My husband has been in distribution and has run distribution centers for both Kroger and PetSmart. What they're proposing to us is not heavy traffic distribution centers. They're looking at more light industrial. They're looking at more smaller areas. It's something that can be addressed further with zoning. I will let you know at this point in time, our attorney does recommend that we do not go forth with zoning before we have the general plan agreement. This will impact our family's property if this general plan agreement, it impacts our future with our land, which even if IndyCap walks away and leaves us with our land, this is what we will have on our property for general plan. We do not have a 100-year water supply. We are going to have to look for something besides agriculture to help the city out. I mean, it could remain agriculture. We have wells. We could keep going. But we ask that you really think through this proposal, because after owning it for 80 years, we feel IndyCap's a good steward of our property and would be a good member of the community. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else here? Please state your name and your address, please.
Yes, Dot Barwinski, 1110 on Hennis Road, Palm Creek. And I'm a newer member of Palm Creek. You know, there's about 5,000 people there when the season is full. I did not even know about this, that something was proposed last October of '22. Did not know a thing about it until this last week or two, that this was even going on. And I want to concur with Brenda in what she said. She's handled huge trucking facilities. Do you picture yourself living next to a 6-lane road and you have a brand new baby? Now granted, we're in Palm Creek and we're retired, but there's other neighborhoods. And do you know how loud semis are? Of course you do. Looking at this plot up there, it just like this little section is shoehorned into the middle of all these neighborhoods. Couldn't you put it over there by I-10 and go north, maybe table this whole thing until you do get something definite on what's going to happen with Courtson? Or how about an exchange at Courtson when that goes in, another one at Cottonwood, and keep all this heavier trucking traffic north and not even let it come down onto Florence? You know, on Florence, they've built that new restaurant, the Texas Steakhouse, and they had to build that little access so you could turn, and that's very confusing already. Think about all these trucks, 6 lanes of semis. How do you guys get to sleep? How do you stay asleep? Is that hard for any of you? Do you think it would be pretty hard waking up to semis in the morning? All day long, all evening? How are you going to fall asleep? Anything. It just doesn't make sense to shoehorn that in there with all these roads up through the neighborhoods. There's so much more I want to say, but now I can't think. Anyway, if you could just consider maybe tabling that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, it's Nancy Wood, 513 East Beckel Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. And I'm familiar with the area partly because I watch over the burrowing owls that we have a lot of in Casa Grande. So this particular area is one of the areas where a lot of the heavy population that we have left in the city is pretty much in this area. So all these different projects are going to be impacting this population for the burrowing owls. The Courtson, the Cottonwood, and Florence. But the reason that I'm speaking mostly about this project is because I'm familiar with the area and drive the area. I have huge concerns for a distribution center going in there. Cottonwood, I use to go over to the mall. A lot of people do, to go to different places. The Palm Creek facility and all those areas have residential. You have the high school that's on Arizola and Cottonwood. And try and drive over the overpass on Cottonwood, over 10. There's no space for bikes, there's no space for people to walk, there's no space for anything. And do you think these things are going to be fixed in any time soon? This is something, you know, they got to build I-10 and get that widened. And you think that we're going to get overpasses? This is ADOT's. This is something you guys can't control. It's a matter of whether ADOT's going to build this stuff and have the money to do this. So you guys are dependent upon that. And so jumping into this, I think this early is not a good idea. I think it's better to sit back and wait and see. I would love to see things as far as commerce and business there. The hospital is not that far away, and it would be a good hub for medical, buildings where we need more doctors and other offices and things like that. And that would be more appropriate kind of business and commerce for that area because there's a lot more residential. Those people would be using those kind of facilities all the time if it had medical buildings that went in there. Being right but close to the hospital, our hospital probably will be needed to be expanded. It's a ideal place for something like that, not distribution. I don't want to see trucks going down Cottonwood. I don't want to see trucks going down Hennis. So please, think about it.
Anyone else? Okay.
Got one more.
Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, my name is Todd Ostransky, 2706 East Glacier Place, Chandler, Arizona. Mayor, council members, thank you for your time. I'm from IndyCap. I represent IndyCap with Jack. I've heard a lot tonight, and I think you guys have a very difficult position and tough job because you're balancing a lot of different things here, and you guys have said it. The neighbors, the developer, the seller, you got a lot to balance. And the thing that I want to make sure that you guys understand is that this is a huge commitment by IndyCap. And we've been working really well with Jim and the city on trying to navigate this large development and the seller. And so as we've been going through the process, I think one thing that we understand is that with this major general plan amendment, this is step one. This is only moving it from a neighborhood to commerce and business. And I think you guys have the ability at the PAD stage, at the major site plan stage, to say, hey, we're not ready. The roads aren't ready. The interchange isn't ready. And I think that will help maybe be a happy medium to where we need to go. As a developer, we need to see that, the city supports this and sees that there's the ability to continue not to support it long term. But this development is going to take years. It's probably an 8 to 10 year development. As you guys have all said, we're probably 3 years out for the interchange. We're 3 years out plus for a water campus that we're still having to work with. We got sewer challenges, we got road challenges. This is going to take a long time to develop. We're not coming in next week for a site plan. We're not ready. The city's not ready. The infrastructure's not ready. But this all takes time. And seeing that we can get the major plan amendment changed to commerce and business is one step, good faith, that allows us to continue moving forward in partnership with the city, with the seller, with the neighbors, continue to work with the neighbors to find a happy medium. And you guys have the mechanisms in place to sit here in 3 months, 6 months, whenever it is, to look at the PAD and see if that works. We have time with the neighbors to work with the neighbors and find a happy medium for, I think, everyone. At least this is step one, where there's still mechanisms in place for you and the neighbors for this not to move forward. But we really need to be able to see that there's support so we can continue to move forward, because as I just mentioned, there is a lot of stuff that we need to do to put in place to be able to continue moving forward. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, and we're committed to Casa Grande, and we're committed to be able to develop here long-term with you guys as partners, and hopefully for the right development. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that this is a long-term play. This isn't something next year or 2 years that's gonna happen, and there's mechanisms in place, and we wanna be a partner long-term for everyone. So thank you for your time, appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. All right, the public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to address council on this issue? All right, seeing no one else, then I'm going to close the public hearing. I did want to make a comment just from my own personal self, in that this is just a land use hearing and a land use vote. It is, And you can't put hospital or medical in a neighborhood. So even if they decided to make this hospital location or a medical location, the commerce and business land use would actually accommodate that. So and I don't think I heard any of the developers say this was a truck distribution center. So it is not a Walmart. So the Walmart references, in my opinion, are not appropriate. This is not a 1.5 million square foot facility that's going to handle 100 or 200 trucks a day, okay? So it's more like my landscaper is going to have a garage there and he's going to store his equipment in it. Now, there are some larger facilities this is in preliminary stage, and it's not even, it may totally change by the time they get to this. So to hold up the change in the land use, I think we're getting ahead of, putting the cart before the horse, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. And that the land use change is not going to dictate what's going to be on this land. So that's my 2 cents. I know that there's a move that we want to table it, but I don't think we need to table it. Now, Brett, the question I have is if we don't table it and I call for the question and it doesn't pass, where does that put us?
It would fail. And what that does is it would require, since it is a major general plan amendment, it would have to come back at a different time during our major general plan amendment process.
So they have to reapply?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is there a time frame that you have to wait to reapply?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we don't want you to have two, which is one of the reasons we've been trying to advance this one, so that developers, people who are trying to move along can decide, if they want to move along, if they want to change something else. But there is no waiting period to reapply, and you could certainly apply in our next cycle, or whenever you had the time to meet the deadlines that are set.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so one thing that's here is the zoning versus, again, the general plan
Right.
land use amendment.
This is not zoning.
I know. That's what I'm saying, is this is not zoning. We don't know what's going to go here. We don't know that it's going to be a truck distribution center. I've read the stuff from all the residents, and I appreciate that a lot. But even if this gets changed tonight, it's not going to be anything until the PAD, until the general plan. We could table it for 3 weeks, right? Or 6 weeks, or not even to go concurrently with the zoning, but until we get more information about it, if that's.
Yeah, you certainly have the ability to table it for, whenever period you would want to make a determination on it.
Because I think there's still a lot of information that needs to get out. And I know you guys have tried with the residents, and I appreciate the 130 people that got onto the Zoom call. And I know you, Jack, tried, and you've done a lot of stuff with the city, and I know you take a lot of pride in it, and you do a good job with that, and you try to do what you could. The one thing that I hope the Palm Creek residents understand is that the landowner was noticed, who is Sun Communities, and that's why you guys didn't get individual mailers until we got with, until Jack, okay, she said she know, but yeah, that's the whole reason, is just how the state statute works. And so, again, appreciate we've gotten more email about this than anything in a long time, which is the one thing. And then the Dewan family, I appreciate they've been here a long time, and I see what they're trying to do. So again, yeah, like I said, I wish it was just to the north of that, if you could do a land swap with that other thing, and then we can do it that way. So, you know what I mean? And then do it that way. And then we
That's
can have all the blue there.
Joe's property up there.
Yep. So anyway.
All right, well, because my fear is that I'm not confident we have enough votes to pass it, since it has to be a majority, or it has to be a majority, right? Not a super majority, but it has to be a majority.
5-2.
So it has to be 5 votes. And I'm not sure we have that, and I think you'd be better off if we tabled this and pushed it off even a month, and then try and readdress some of the questions. I'm confident you have my vote, but I'm not sure you have the others' votes. So that being said, that's my recommendation to you guys. I'll leave it up to you if you want me to try and, if you want us to
And I
try
would
and
say,
press a
it's up
vote.
to us.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
The other thing I would say is
I can
if
also-
it does get tabled tonight, I wouldn't say it's until October for the general plan. It's just until we get more information. And then the roads are the biggest issue, obviously, that he brought up.
And Mayor, and of course, I think, compatibility is so important, and so I think that's my concern here, are those the road, the arterial roads even, I understand, what you're doing and the zoning piece, but I'm just, like, I forget the lady's name that talked about how huge this is, and when you look at how it's going to truly affect, if that, the Courtson interchange is critical for me, and once we know about that, that's gonna be
And
critical. 'cause I
we
think
should know
that-
about that in the next 2 weeks.
Right, and so I would like to table it at least to see where we are with that, because the other, how it's going to affect all these other roads is a major concern, and the community right there too, but it's the roads, so I think the.
But if you look at the commerce and business, it touches Palm Creek on its east
Right.
edge. So it's not like it's not on them already.
Right.
Bob?
I just want to add to the discussion. I agree with all the concerns about the traffic, but I would point out as well that if this develops as seems like we all have the gut feeling this is going to turn into some level of a distribution area, even if Courtson Interchange develops and Hennis Road develops north, we've learned a hard lesson from Walmart that if any of those trucks are headed towards Tucson, they're going to come south on Hennis, on Florence Boulevard, and onto the freeway. We've been told stories about what the trucks would do that didn't pan out, and I'm going to still have that concern even if we get news on the interchange and Hennis.
Go ahead, Jack.
Mayor, council, thank you. I guess I want to get a clear understanding. If we table this, I understand the concern and waiting to hear on the grant, but I want to make sure we're going to address whatever questions the council might have. Because in terms of the land use itself, I don't know there's too many more issues that can be uncovered at this point except the circulation. And the city small area transportation plan has already determined, along with the general plan, that Hennis, Courtson, and Cotton Lane will all be principal arterials, designed to carry the highest volume of traffic. I understand the concern about Florence Boulevard. We agree 100%. But having designed dozens of industrial parks up and down the 303 corridor in the west side of Phoenix, I know that truckers are intuitively trained to go for their right turn lanes, for right turns. They don't like to make lefts. So for the convenience and for the expediency, I think most of those truckers will be using the new Courtson interchange to get to this nexus area. It's going to be shorter and less problematic than going, I think, along Florence it's already congested. And I think the exit traffic we can control on that site plan. We're not trying to generate traffic to Cotton Lane. We're trying to internalize the traffic and go west to Hennis and then north. But yeah, there is going to be neighborhoods up there, but we will be using the arterial. And I can cite many, many projects around the west side of Phoenix and where I've done these industrial parks. And Jim showed a picture where these industrial parks are placed across from arterials and have a compatible relationship with the neighborhoods. I've worked on many of those in the west side. So there is a concern. The buffers, the walls, and the character of the landscape goes a long way to creating that separation. It's not illustrated well here, but I can guarantee you on the right side of this, if that were our project, there'd be screen walls and there'd be a pretty dense landscape that would be part of the site plan approval process. So I think we can address a lot of the concerns of the neighbors and staff and would still request that this major general plan be approved, but if the council desired to table this, then we'll do that and try and address whatever concerns the neighbors might have, but again, I think most of those are going to be dealt with the PED and not with the land use. So I guess I want to make that point clear, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jack.
So,
Just to add to what Jack said, if we table, or choose to table this, I guess the question that I would ask, if I may, would be what additional information would you guys be looking for? Because as Jack mentioned, this is land use, it's not zoning. We're not ready to have a zoning PAD come forth in 30 days. And so if there is additional information that deals with the land use or something that attributes to that, we would be more than willing and happy to address those if we knew exactly what that was. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that we would address them if we know what it is. If you feel that this needs to be tabled to address those concerns for the land use, again, we're here to be a long-term partner. So,
My suggestion is let us find out if the courts and TI gets approved.
that's the main.
That will be, if that gets approved, I think you get your land use change. I don't like to make it contingent on that, but because that's counting on the federal government, which is never a good thing.
Mayor?
But
If I could add, how does that help us with Hennis?
because they go north on Hennis and they get on Courtson
But he's
Road.
talking about the rest of the road, I think, right?
Yeah, from this property, from Cottonwood Lane to the interchange at Courtson, if the Courtson interchange is built, doesn't that have to include Hennis improvements all the way up?
It does, and they would probably be doing at least half of those improvements, because their property runs right along Hennis.
Okay.
Then we have to work on the neighbor next to you.
that's correct.
It's a better alternative than not, because Cottonwood, there's an overpass here on Cottonwood that isn't gonna be built anytime soon, in my opinion. Cottonwood can be widened to 6 lanes. Hennis south to Florence is a 6-lane highway. It is not a highway, but it is a major feeder. And then Hennis North, Courtson all the way to Val Vista is also a major
And
feeder road.
I'm just saying, even if we found out that Courtson interchange is going to take place within the next year, we still have a good section of Courtson Road and an even longer section of Hennis that would have to be improved before truck traffic could go from Cottonwood and Hennis to the Courtson interchange.
Correct. And they would be part of that improvement.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying. You're saying everything's just going to be pushed back. It's going to be delayed. Because we will not be able to, if you don't get that course and don't go through, and we decide tonight, yes, then where does that put us?
Well, but
So
you
it's
change
been
the
a-
land use and your PAD zoning doesn't happen.
Right, exactly. So, and that's why I believe what we're talking about is tabling it, to give us a little bit more time to make a better judgmental call in regards to the best route for our city to go. I believe that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in support of what you guys want to try and do.
Right.
I'm just saying that I would suggest maybe you table it.
Yeah, Mayor, council members, we'll take your recommendation and we'll table it to, would it be a time to be determined?
We could,
And then it-
we
I think maybe
could readdress it for our first July meeting, Larry?
Mr. Mayor, there's only one meeting in July.
Right.
That is on
That's right.
July the 17th.
Right, so.
We don't have to set a date when we table it, do we?
No,
The other thing I would say is if personally, we can talk about it.
you
is
asked him a
just-
question, he's gonna answer your question.
Oh.
Brett?
He said, he shook his head.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to table it to a date certain. Because it can ask staff to put it back on, working with the developer, and when you think you're ready.
I'd like to see if we could get some meetings just to get a little more clarity. And the courts and TI is going to be it, and I don't think there's a vote tonight. so
But
instead
the
of
question
going
is, what
down-
do we want for clarity? That's the
Yeah.
question. that they've been asking. And we haven't given them any answers other than courts.
Right.
But that's out of their hands.
Right.
And then I would like to clear, it wouldn't be necessarily be them, but maybe our team as well. To Bob's point, who is gonna, I mean, I know we'd have to participate in some of those road build-outs, and how are we gonna pay for that? You know, if this goes first before the other side of it, you know, until the other development starts, because that's key to the whole thing is the circulation, which part of it is on your side. I get, you know, and you guys are, I know you're fine with doing what you have to do for yours, but we got more partnerships with other landowners as well as the city. I'm sure we'll have to participate in some of that, so we need to see where we can get that. And again, a good point that I think people aren't, is this is an 8 to 10 year project, so it's not gonna happen overnight. I mean, nothing of this size does, but I think another couple weeks, just because I don't think there's the votes here tonight, you know, and I wouldn't want you to have to go through the whole process again, where we could answer some more questions and try to work it out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so your land use request can stay active. It doesn't, you don't have to start over unless it fails. So I'd recommend we table it.
Yeah, we agree.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So move to table.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to table item number L3. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to table L3. And then Larry, let's set up a meeting with the developer. And so we can, I mean, I guess really we can wait till we hear on the courts, and because I think that's really the deciding factor.
Mr. Mayor, what I might recommend is if council has specific questions that you'd like to have answered, if you could forward those to us, we can work with the developer to attempt to get some responses as we await some decision on the court.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so that's our meeting tonight, and we do have reports, so I'm going to start to my left. Anthony, reports?
No reports. No reports.
Donna?
Off we go.
Matt?
I got a quick one.
Okay.
Our neighbors to the north in the Gila River Indian community invited us to the Santan Casino opening the other night. I got to see fellow Sun Devil Governor Lewis celebrate their new accomplishment. Beautiful facility, great neighbors, are doing a lot for their community and the surrounding communities. And he said it's only 20 minutes from my house. I found out it's just on Gilbert Road. But they had a great hospitality, food, entertainment, Leanne Rhymes, and they're great neighbors to have, as we know. So if you get an opportunity, go check it out. But just want to thank them for that.
Nothing. Lisa?
One quick thing, the Latino Familia Initiative is starting their Hispanic Leadership Institute. So if anyone is interested, it's a 10-week program, and we partner with Valle del Sol in Phoenix and CAC, and the application is actually live. So if you go to valledelsol.com, you could go on and apply for the Hispanic Leadership Institute. We're in our 16th year in Hispanic leadership. A lot of the city employees have gone through it, leaders throughout the county, so would love for some city employees to participate too. That's it.
I'd like to report that Alaska is still beautiful, but I'm glad to be home. That's all.
It's
Great.
right?
Thank you, everyone, and I'm going to forego my report tonight as well. So, thanks, everyone. I need to go into executive session, so I'll take a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move into executive session.